And we are live on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Drew, how are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing great. Giants won today, beat the Red Sox. Mike Yastrzemski homered, grandson of famous Red Sox Carl Yastrzemski. So everything's right in the world. You
So,
probably don't
what we
even know who
have,
that is, but that's okay.
nope, no idea. Um, on the docket today, we are going to be giving out our NFL draft grades, and then we're going to kind of recap, review, go over the offseason of the teams that lost. Also, each one of the playoff series that are still going on. We're going to go ahead and go over all of those starting now. So let's go and start with the NFL draft grades. Drew, let's just go by alphabetical order. And then on YouTube, I'll go ahead and just cut up each one individually so people can click on them and get mad at the team individually instead of having to sit through an entire division. Arizona Cardinals, their draft grade, what did you give them?
Are people going to get real mad because spoiler alert, you shared your grades with me and you weren't too critical on anyone?
No, but I don't know what you did.
I think that I'm probably going to try to be a little more, combative with you.
You're the bad cop in this situation.
Well, I mean, doom and gloom is just much more exciting than anything. As I start my podcast movie here, for those that are unaware, I always watch a movie during the podcast. So let me fire that up with no sound. The Cardinals, I'm gonna go with a B minus.
Okay. Why is that? Because I gave them an A minus. I saw this draft pretty successful for them.
I just felt like with all the talk about what could happen at 4 and all the assets that they could add and all the things that they could do, they stick there. They go Marvin Harrison Jr. And if we fast forward 10 years into the future, is Marvin Harrison Jr. the best wide receiver out of this draft class? Maybe. Chances are
Right.
he's not, just strictly probability. And if you can jump, go down 5 or 6 picks, and pick up a Neighbors or pick up a Rome or something like that, and restock a little bit, then there was just so much talk, that it was just kind of like, I think maybe a little underwhelming for me. I love Max Melton, so that was a great pickup for them. Darius Robinson, maybe it was just because of the defensive players in this draft class just weren't upper echelon as they have in years before, that I'm just kind of meh about him. But I mean, I just think that they went chalk, right? They did what they had to do. There's just, I'll put it to you this way: there's nothing that they did that really worries me. Like when we're going to talk about a team in your division, I'm looking at what they did and I'm like, whoa, holy shit! Like that's like uh-oh type of situation. My team too, right? Well, we play the teams in your division. Nothing the Cardinals did worry me.
Yeah, and see, for me, when you talk about all the talk that something was going to happen at 4, or maybe some of their other picks because they had a ton of picks within the first 90. I was kind of sitting on the other side of the fence when it came to Arizona. You've traded around so much, especially last year, that you've acquired all these picks. At one point or another, you have to take blue chip talent. Like that's at the end of the day, you have to. And when you look at the receiving room of Arizona, it's just so piss poor that if you can get the potential number 1 wide receiver in this draft, or if we're talking about 5 years down the road, he could be a top 5 receiver in the league, and get him at 4. I think it's something that you have to do. Yeah, the Darius Robinson pick, I think this is probably the starting range for him. I still like it, and I like the team fit for him because they needed a lot of help on the edge. And those top 3 guys versus Latu and Turner were all off the board, and Robinson was the next guy up right after that. So he made the most sense to be next up, and with the edge help that they needed, it made a lot of sense to pick him there. Max Melton, I do like. He's just a little bit early for me in the second round at pick 43. So it's a little early for Max Melton in my taste. And then Trey Benson in the third. You know how I feel about Trey Benson. I know you have James Conner there, but he's not this explosive speed back that Trey Benson is with excellent vision. Now that you have the 1-2 punch with James Conner with a lot of power, and then James Conner gets hurt a lot. He's not a healthy guy. And now you have Trey Benson, who could be a certified number one in a year or 2 years. I think it's a great pickup. A couple of these middle of the road picks, Isaiah Adams is a little bit of reach. Tip Raymond's a little bit of reach. I don't see the need for, of course, you need backup tight ends and whatnot, but in the third feels a little bit rich for me when you have Trey McBride, who's one of the better tight ends, top 13 tight ends in the league. But then you go down to round 4 and you get Adrian Taylor Demerson, Xavier Thomas, excuse me, and then you still pick up a developmental tackle in Christian Jones, who was being mocked closer to like the 4th round. I like a lot of the pickups that they do. Again, I gave them an A- because they filled out the needs at premium positions, and they got players I liked, right? So there's going to be a bias there of players I like in the specific spots, or even just steals, right? Adrian Taylor Demerson that's probably the right range for him, but then Christian Jones, a little bit of a steal for me, and then Trey Benson, roughly around that spot, or maybe even the 2nd round for me is where he should have gone. So I get the B grade when you're looking at it from that perspective. But again, for me, I wanted them to take all the blue chip talent. So I totally understand where you're coming from, though. The Atlanta Falcons. So this is the one, and I was surprised. So this is usually the one everyone's giving a D, an F, really low grades on. And I didn't really give them a super high grade. I'm going to be alone on this, being even higher than a D. I give him a C-. Yes, the Michael Penix Jr. thing is going to weigh everything down. That's going to be very clear and obvious. How I kind of graded out is I started from round 1 and been like, okay, if I'm only looking at round 1 grades, what am I going to give him? Okay, I'm giving an F. Okay, Rook, where am I going to give him? Okay, I'm going to bump him a little bit because I really like Rook. And so I start bumping up the grade, or I lower it depending on where guys are drafted. Atlanta took a lot of my guys, Rook Ororo, JD Bertrand, who I had as like my linebacker too. So they took a lot of my guys. Braylon Trice went exactly where we're supposed to go. Brandon Dorless, interior defensive lineman / defensive end. Not sure if he'll actually play defensive end just because of his size and speed. To me, the only really confusing pick that holds the entire draft down is the Michael Penix Jr. pick, which I know the conversation is, oh, well, there's an out in Kirk Cousins' contract in 2 years, and you can go ahead and move on from him, and Michael Penix can start in 2 years. But if you're going to do that, and this is my quarterback 3, and he's my quarterback 3 to like start immediately, not sit for 2 years, and be like 27 years old when he's first starting. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They're trying to follow like the Green Bay method of drafting a guy in the first round, but this is pick 8. Not in like the mid-20s. This is completely different to me. So again, Atlanta, I'm giving a C- too.
I like what Atlanta did with Michael Penix. I think they took Rook way too high. They also traded up to take him too high, which is an awful use of your picks. The Falcons are going to be good the next 2 years. They're not going to have an opportunity to draft this high again. Kirk Cousins is going to be really good. But if he's not going to be healthy for OTAs. So who's taking all those snaps? He may not be healthy for the first couple of weeks of training camp. So who's taking all those snaps? And what if he has a little bit of a setback in the preseason? Who's taking all those snaps? Michael Penix. And then Kirk comes back and they win 10 or 12 games this year. Okay, they're in the back half, the back 20. They win 10 or 12 games, they're in the back 20. I actually don't hate that they identified Michael Penix as the player that they wanted to draft and move forward with. And I'm going to go ahead and chuck the conventional wisdom with everything that happened here and the way they did it. I was actually pretty okay with the way they went about it. So I just think that one injury setback to Kirk Cousins and your Super Bowl aspirations are completely out the window with this team if you're going back to Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke or whatever you're doing. So I don't hate it. Right. He's going to get a lot of work in the offseason to see where he's at and what he can do. And, Drew Bledsoe goes down and Tom Brady never gives the job back. And Tony Romo goes down and Dak Prescott never gives the job back. So there's a lot that can come of this. I think this grade could be a big fat F 3 years from now, and it could be a big fat A+ 3 years from now. So I'm not going to do
Yeah.
the, well, you got to give it 3 years bullshit that everybody wants to do. But this one is definitely going to look different a couple years from now in a really good way or a really bad way. Frankly, the 49ers had a terrible draft a couple years ago, but with the last pick, they found their starting quarterback. So if you nail the quarterback, nothing else matters.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't give it a grade. I'm going to go C+.
Okay, cool.
I hate trading up for Rook. I hate giving up assets to trade up for him there. And I like him too. But at 35, I just, no thank you.
When he was probably going to sit there. I mean, I don't see another team, especially with the assets that were sitting there as well. Johnny Newton, Braden Fisk, like these guys were already sitting here who were both ahead of Rook for me. And I had Rook really high, but Rook was my 3. So the only other guy is actually Braden Fisk was ahead of him. So that's the only other guy I would have seen as like, maybe I would have taken him, but he maybe doesn't fit in Atlanta's scheme. So they really wanted Rook. And if they had some type of inside knowledge that someone was going to take him, I get it. But there were still a lot of other options, even if you sat at your place. The Baltimore Ravens. Go ahead and start this one off.
I gave the Ravens an A. They had one of the higher grades for me. Nate Wiggins, I know we kind of dropped him a lot in some of the stuff leading up to the draft, but when you got Marlon Humphreys and you got Kyle Hamilton, Nate Wiggins' speed, he cycles right in with that defense. I know the 49ers were super interested in Rosengarten, thinking that he could start at right tackle for them as a rookie. Obviously, you see the idea there. Devontae Walker, you and me mocked him in the 3rd round, I think, in our 3rd round mock that we did, going to play for the Washington Commanders with his boy Drake May, and then TJ Tampa. Obviously, like I mentioned, we all wanted to know why this man slid, because I saw him as high as the 1st round of the 49ers in people's mocks. So I just think they nailed multiple. Nate Wiggins starter. TJ Tampa could be a starter. Rosengarten can be a starter. Devontae Walker could be really good. They're just hit. And when you're in when you're at the upper echelon competing with the Kansas City Chiefs every year, this was a super important draft to them. They have to nail these picks. So I think they did a good job.
Yeah, this is my one of 2 A+ grades. So Nate Wiggins, obviously, this is like right around the range he should have gone. His skill set alone is probably corner 1, but with the injury concern, his weight concerns, he has a couple of things about him that are really, really, they're concerning. And taking him at the back half, that's where you take guys who have concerns or they have a lot of upside. That's exactly where you take these guys. So taking Nate Wiggins at pick 30 is exactly perfect. Rosengarten was on, who was it? Mel Kiper's, one of Mel Kiper's 1st round mocks. He was getting into the 1st round. So Rosengarten at the back of the 2nd is not someone that we mocked there, but apparently the NFL was a lot higher than we were. Adisa Isaac, probably one of the better stories in the league. The Athletic did a really good piece on him very recently about his siblings and then being nonverbal and what he wants to do after the league. And so they did a really good piece on Adisa Isaac, probably immediate starter coming in. Tez Walker, again, we, just like you said, mocked him in the 3rd. I have him in my top 10 of receivers, and he goes in the 4th. And TJ Tampa, another potential 1st round guy that you're getting in the 4th. So it seems like, and the thing with Baltimore is they're so good at drafting. That's what some of my grades come into play too, is they're so good at drafting that I can't question some of it so much, because they seem to hit and hit and hit and hit and be able to develop these guys to be really, really good players. Justin Badabuke was not this like top perennial guy, but then he developed into it because of the coaching and the staff, and they turn these guys into really good players. So that kind of factors in a little bit. Baltimore's a really good drafting team, and they took a lot of guys that I ranked a lot higher than where they took them. So that kind of gives credence to my A+ grade. And then the Buffalo Bills, I gave Buffalo a B-. The most puzzling, there's a couple real puzzling things to me. So I like Keon Coleman. I think he fits in really well with Buffalo. The problem is I have AD Mitchell ranked above him. There was a bunch of weird stuff during the draft about his attitude problems or his character concerns. And so it seems like Keon was going to be their guy. But what's puzzling is not only who was on the board, but you trade back with Kansas City to give them Xavier Worthy, which you already did the same thing when you gave him Patrick Mahomes. And then now you're giving Xavier Worthy, a team that seems to beat you and beat you and beat you and beat you in the playoffs. And, Josh Allen's a 2-time Super Bowl winner potentially without Buffalo sitting there. The 49ers are a 2-time Super Bowl winner without Kansas City sitting there. So if Buffalo doesn't make all these trades, like what's the difference that we're making here? And then they trade back one more pick with Carolina. So Carolina can grab Xavier Legette. Cole Bishop in the second is wild to me. I don't see it. A couple of these guys that I didn't see going this high, I went back and watched some film on, and Cole Bishop does not look like a second rounder at all. I get the need, especially losing your safeties and a lot on your defense. Dwayne Carter is a huge upside guy. Picking him at the back half of the third round is okay to me. I actually kind of like that pick, especially he's being compared to guys like Adigizua. And then fourth round for Ray Davis. Big fan of Cedric Van Pran in the fifth. That's a starting center to me, like today, and he's going in the fifth. So that one's a little wild. I'm not sure why he goes that low. So I gave him a B- because I like the picks. I'm just not some of the picks. I'm just not sure why we're taking him in some of the positions.
Yeah, I'm at a B- on the Bills. I'm not going to fault them. I'm going to look at their process and not the teams they decided to trade with. They trade back, then they trade back again with Carolina, right? And Carolina takes their wide receiver, right? That's what they did. They traded back twice, didn't they?
Yep.
They traded out of the first, and they traded back again. So they add picks and they add stuff back to their draft cabinet. This is a team that had to lose a lot of players in the offseason to get back under the salary cap. They take their player anyway. If they're taking Keon Coleman at 31 and, or whatever their pick is, if they're taking Keon Coleman and the Carolina Panthers are taking Xavier Legette, then Xavier Worthy's sitting there for the Chiefs anyway. So I'm not going to fault them for moving back. The Ray Davis pick is cool. Cedric Von Pran was a guy that I was looking at in the second and third for the 49ers. So to get him in the fifth is a steal, in my opinion. The Cole Bishop thing, when you have such a glaring need, sometimes you're forced to make the pick. And Cole Bishop is really like a high floor player, which is funny because then in the third they go with Dwayne Carter, who's a super high ceiling player. So they kind of they went weird like thought process on second and third, but they needed a safety, and if they believe in their guy, I'm a big believer, like my team did. When you believe in your guy, if it's 15 to 20 picks too early, as most experts think, but you believe in your guy, just take your guy. Now, is Cole Bishop Kyle Hamilton? Absolutely not. But if you think he's going to play both safety positions for you and start, then take your guy. And then being able to get Cedric, like I said, in the fifth, that dude, he might be a starting center. He might be the first player off the bench at 3 different positions on the offensive line. There's just a ton of like talent in that player, and they could play him in a couple different places. The rest of the picks, I don't know anything about. I'm not going to pretend that I do. Obviously, my analysis here is really going to be top 100, top 125. So, just a B- from the Buffalo Bills for me, especially since Keon Coleman, there's other players there. If he's your guy, he's your guy. But man, he's an interesting wide receiver in today's game. So,
yeah, he's your boom or bust, right? Because his contested catch rate is better than anybody else's, but his separation rate is horrible. His route running is very sloppy. So depending on what you want to do with him and how you're going to use him is definitely going to dictate how well he does in this league and how he develops. So right now he's not ready to be a 1, but he's going to have to quickly develop to turn into that. And the Carolina Panthers, you want to go and take this one?
Yeah, this is like vanilla ice cream to me. This is like a C, right down the middle. Okay. Xavier Legette, okay. Again, if you identify your guy, take your guy. I'm cool with it. I didn't have him ranked super high. I know with the wide receivers and the offensive tackles and the cornerbacks, I jotted down like a top 15. And maybe I just didn't pay much attention to Xavier as I should have. Jonathan Brooks, I don't even know if he's contributing to this team this year with coming off an ACL injury. Trevin Wallace is like, I don't for a weak ass linebacker class to take a linebacker in the third round, especially this one when there's so many other needs you have. I mean, I like Jatavion Sanders, so I'll give him credit there. But all three of their picks were kind of head scratchers to me. I'm not sure if Leggett is a game changer for Bryce day one. I actually think Jatavion Sanders might have a bigger impact for him first year. And you're not drafting for this upcoming year always, but I don't know if you noticed, but they got 2025 mock drafts out already. And do you know who's picking number one in the 2025 mock draft? The Carolina Panthers, because they expect them to suck again. Yep. So when you're going out there and trying to get something to change right away for your young quarterback, a rookie coming off an ACL injury and a linebacker that I really don't know anything about is just vanilla ice cream to me, man. It's a C.
Yeah, I actually liked the draft. I gave him a B. Now I had Leggett over guys like Keon Coleman, and I had Xavier Leggett over like Xavier Worthy and a couple other guys. He was like top 7, 8 for me. I think he was 8. I think he was right behind Tez Walker. Super high ceiling type player. Man, it's hard not to imagine. He's not like manufactured touch like Debo is, but the way that man's built and his run after the catch ability being so big is really impressive. His route running just needs a little bit of work. Jonathan Brooks I see why we're drafting him, because the Miles Sanders thing didn't work out, but wasting a second round pick on Jonathan Brooks when you could have gotten closer to like maybe backing up Miles Sanders with a Ray Davis in the 4th, or a Trey Benson went in the 3rd, who I think is a superior back. Blake Corum went later as well. So there's a couple of guys who I have ahead of Jonathan Brooks, and we're taking him in the 2nd round, which is where he was being mocked to anyways, even to the Cowboys, which when they took Jonathan Brooks, I was like, cool. I was like, we can get Trey Benson now. And then we ended up not taking him anyways. The Trevor Wallace
Zeke,
pick.
though.
yeah. I don't even want to talk about it yet.
Unfinished business, he says.
Hey, the 1,200 yard season for Zeke is incoming. Trevor Wallace makes sense to me because he's a rushing linebacker like Frankie Louvu was, and they just lost Frankie Louvu. This is like the immediate Frankie Louvu replacement. That's pretty much all Trevor Wallace is at this position here. And then the Jatavion Sanders is like the steal for me out of this class for Carolina, easily going in the 4th. When we had this guy going in the 2nd, I could have in mid-2nd, he could have even gone as high 2nd with how good he potentially is, and having a bunch of tight ends go in front of him that I just do not agree with. I gave them a B. I like the draft. I think there's a couple of confusing spots, like the Jonathan Brooks thing is weird. I don't mind the Trevor Wallace thing. Xavier Leggett going that high. You got to take your guy where you're going to get him. So, and getting Bryce more weapons has to be the most important thing right now. So I'm giving them a B. Moving on to the Chicago Bears. If I can scroll down, there we go. A very small draft class, but this is an A for me. You get Caleb Williams. Obviously, you have the number 1 pick from Carolina. He's the best quarterback in the class, best player in the class, potentially super high up, upside. Romo Dunze, wide receiver 2 for us. Kieran Amagaji in the 3rd is, to me, perfect for a developmental tackle. He was like right outside the top 10 for my tackles, and going in the 3rd, not going any higher than that, because I saw Kieran like kind of late 2nd, mid-2nd sometimes, and I'm like, that's way too early for a kid who played at goddamn Yale. And then going back, the thing that's a kicker for me is going back and trading back into the draft, because after the 4th round pick, they were done. Trading back into the draft for the 5th and getting a super high ceiling guy in Austin Booker, who's super bendy, super athletic, but needs a lot more work and probably should have went back to school. getting him in the 5th is great because you can develop the shit out of him behind a couple other guys, and hopefully it works out for him. So I'm giving them an A because of just you got a couple of immediate impact players in the first 2, and then 2 potential starters in the next 3 years in the other 2.
Yeah, I got 2 grades on this one. I'm going to go ahead and give your draft analyst on this podcast an F because you used the phrase the thing that's a kicker for me and didn't mention them taking a punter with their 4th pick. So that's a fail because I thought you had something nice teed up there. Man, with such a small draft class and not a lot of picks in this draft, do you maybe wonder with a wide receiver room of Keenan Allen and DJ Moore already, do you trade out of that number 9 pick and add a second and a third or a second and a fourth and then take one of these guys 18 to 25 anyway? Maybe you do, but in terms of value and all this stuff, we have to give them nothing but an A. But it's definitely something to consider with all the capital they've lost over the years now for some of the moves they've made. You really, when you have these small draft classes, the Rams have found out about this, the 49ers have found out about this. You have to hit these picks. You can't just be wasting picks when you don't have a ton. So it's an A for value all over the place. I gotta say, I'm glad they took the offense tackle from Yale. That way we weren't tempted to, just because that's kind of a little suspicious to me, but we'll see.
And then the Cincinnati Bengals, go and take that one.
I am going to. I'm going to go answer my front door. I'll be right back. I guess you'll take the Cincinnati
Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals going with a B+ for me. Taking Amarius Mims in the 1st is a huge home run because of the potential that he has. He's only played 8 games. He has a ton of potential. There's some injury concerns because playing at 340 pounds and 6'8", and being that nimble you are, when you see athletic specimens like this, most of the time when they're draft busts, what do you see? Do you see them having injury concerns? So that's a little concerning for me, but Marius Mims is still in my top 5 of offensive tackles and went exactly where he probably should have. Chris Jenkins in the 2nd, run stuffing defensive tackle. Jermaine Burton in the 3rd, talented wide receiver to go in the 2nd that has a lot of off-field concerns, attitude concerns, character things with him that push him down the board to the middle of the 3rd round. So honestly, Jermaine Burton could probably fall in even further. I like the talent of Jermaine. He's like a top 15 wide receiver for me. But again, you have a lot of concerns there. And then Eric All in the 4th, you're getting somebody who I know that you guys signed Mike Gesicki. I get it, but this is another true receiving tight end that can help Joe Burrow out. We're talking about weapons on weapons on weapons. So yes, you have Jermaine Burton. Yes, and I know you have that young slot kid as well over there. You have T. Higgins. You have Jamar Chase. You have all those weapons, but giving him Mike Gesicki and Eric All, surrounding him as much talent as possible is going to be incredibly important for Joe Burrow, and getting safety blankets around him and additional tight ends is really important as well. The rest of the picks, we're not talking about immediate impact players or even super big developmental guys. So again, B+ is where I'm at. Again, my favorite pick of the draft is probably going to be the Amarius Mims pick. And then the steal is probably going to be closer to Jermaine Burton. So I went B+ with Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I liked a lot of what they did in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, just as much as they did with their first 3 picks. Jermaine Burton, good wide receiver. I went running back in here, and now I'm out of breath. That's embarrassing. It really just comes down to how you feel about Amarius Mims. That's kind of where this comes down. Everybody knows what Chris Jenkins is going to bring to the table, Michigan guy. I think that I can't imagine that's who they wanted at 18, but the board shook out weird, especially with J.C. Latham going so early. So it really just comes down to what type of player he's going to be. So seems about right.
Yeah. What I was just saying is just the Amarius Mims things is he is a super high ceiling guy, but he could be immediate bust because of some of the injury concerns, because he is like 340 whatever pounds, and he's also 6'8", and he's super nimble. And when it comes to those guys who are athletic specimens, what's like the number one thing and concern for them? It's injuries. That's why they become busts. It's not their talent, because even in the small sample size of 8 games, he's really, really impressive, and his technique is a little sloppy, but you can see it's there, and it's stuff to polish out. But there's definitely a lot of risk there. 18, as much as I like the player and being in my top 5, I want to say being in my top 4, it's still a lot of concern there.
Yeah, I mean, Eric All had a lot of injury concerns in college also, and PFF hated Josh Newton. So it's just, I mean, what are we talking about though? 5th, 6th, 7th round picks. These, there's going to be a lot of good teams in the NFL this year. A lot of teams. There's going to be players that were drafted this year that aren't even going to make the teams. So,
absolutely,
super interesting dynamic this year with the NIL money in college, and a lot of good players staying in school. Quinn Ewers, and not coming out just because the money to be made in college, leading to this draft not having a ton of draftable players in the back half of the draft. So,
yeah, looking at the way too early mocks too. Man, next year's going to be a crazy defensive class. It looks like from the first glance. I'm like, dude, it's like the polar opposite of this class. Like first 15 guys or first 14 guys are all offensive guys, and a single digit amount of defensive guys drafted in the first round. First time that's ever happened. We might get a complete flip next year with the talent it looks like that's coming out. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to keep an eye on throughout the year. Cleveland Browns. What do you give Cleveland?
I give Cleveland a C. I mean, what are you going to do when your first pick is like number 54?
Yeah.
Mike Hall Jr. The problem with this pick is this is boomer bust for him. This doesn't seem like a Chris Jenkins pick where just throw him out there. Now, obviously, this is 20 picks later than Chris Jenkins went. I understand that, but like I find a hard time seeing a pathway to Chris Jenkins not being in the NFL 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Yeah,
I can see Mike Hall being out of the league in like 4 years. I could see Mike Hall being a superstar in 4 years. Tough to have that much variance with your first pick in the draft.
I feel like with defensive tackles, you always see elder defensive tackles are one of two things. They can pass rush and stop the run, or they can stop the run. You don't see like older older defensive tackles that are pure pass rush guys like Michael Hall is. And I feel like that's kind of all he is at this point, is just a pure. You're never going to see him in the backfield making a play unless someone just forgets to block him on a play. He's not going to make that. He's not going to make that type of impact. He's going to be like a third down specialty guy. But to get him in the second's a little early. Yeah,
I will say, when analyzing the draft, you can't just analyze the picks that are made. You have to analyze the total amount of compensation, and because every year each NFL team comes in with the same assets. They have the same amount of picks. They have the same amount of salary cap. To be able to draft, a boomer bust player like Mike Hall Jr. and then a Zach Zenter, but then to take a 5th round pick that probably wasn't going to be very valuable and swapping it for Jerry Jeudy, there's part of that that's good. Obviously, they don't have a 1st round pick that's tied up in their quarterback, who maybe go down as one of the biggest busts of all time in terms of that trade. So to get some value out of a late round pick when there isn't much value in the draft in the 5th through 7th rounds this year, and bring in a wide receiver that could start from day one, I do like that. I like Jamari Thrash. So
yeah,
it just, with your first pick being a player like Mike Hall, that's just very could be great, could be bad.
Yeah. And then Zach Zenter going in the 3rd is okay. I would have liked him to go a little bit later than this, especially some of the guards that were on the board could have gone before him.
Then Von Prawn goes in the 5th. It's just
it's too much for me. Jamari Thrash, just super manufacturer touch guy.
Yep.
I gave Cleveland a C+ with this one. because of what Michael Hall could be and what Jamari Thrash could immediately bring to the team as a wide receiver 3 in the manufacturers, the sweeps, the screens, the potential deep threat. C plus. And with the Dallas Cowboys, I gave a B plus to my team. There's a lot of these players where I would have liked other guys to go, right? And I think that's the immediate thing where when I'm looking at my team, I want to take somebody else. I want to take someone else besides Tyler Guyton in the first. And there's a lot of issues with Guyton, right? Just to give you an example. So my dad texted me 2 days after the drafting, said, I see every other analyst and I see every other page say they really love the Guyton pick, and you are like the only person that doesn't. Why do you not like the Guyton pick? Why are you alone on an island on this? And I said, well, I don't think I am. I said, and if I am, here's the problem. One, this is supposed to be a developmental starter, and he played right tackle, not left tackle. He already had issues in the in pass rush. In the passing game, he already had some issues. He's light in the lower half of his body. He's really sloppy with his hand placements. He's only won really off of athleticism in college. And we're taking this guy and we're saying, hey, protect our very, very expensive quarterback. Again, this is a guy who's supposed to be developmental, and you're supposed to protect him on his blind side. So I'm going to trust it because it's the Cowboys, and the past 3 offensive linemen that we've taken in the first have been all pro guys. Tyler Smith, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. So I'm just going to have to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. The Marshawn Kneeland pick, I like. This is the immediate DeMarcus Lawrence. Once he's gone, Kneeland's going to go ahead and step in. I think this is not going to be someone you're going to see a lot of double-digit sacks, but you are going to see him in the backfield quite a bit with his power profile. I like the Cooper Beebe pick because he has center flexibility. I hate the Cooper Beebe pick because Christian Haynes was still on the board. That's my only issue with with picking a guard in the third when the best guard in the class is still sitting there. But again, I get it because of the center flexibility, and we need center. Maurice Luafau is my linebacker 3, so this was my favorite pick of the draft at a need that we really need. And then Kalen Carson in the 5th, to me, is insane. I don't see how Kalen Carson goes in the 5th round. This is closer to a beginning 4th round guy to me. For me, this is the steal, and the Maurice Luafau pick is my favorite. So we attacked all of the needs, and we got players who I think have a lot of high upside, and some of the players who have a high floor, like Cooper Beebe and Kneeland, I think both have high floors.
Where are you guys going to play Carson at? Are you going to play corner or safety?
I think Carson's going to play in the nickel, and I think he's going to play safety. But because of he's a talented player on a team like Wake Forest, he always shadowed the best player consistently. So even when he was going against Keon Coleman, he was shadowing Keon Coleman in that Florida State game the entire time, pretty much. So whether he was in the slot or on the outside, he does that game to game out. So that's why I like him in the 5th, is he seemed to play everywhere. So I think he's going to provide a lot of support in that nickel role.
Yeah, I did a lot of, obviously, Cowboys 49ers centric pod, so I did a lot of research on your guys' picks to try to give it a fairly good grade that would stand on its own. And one of the things that I noticed was Kalen Carson was a 2nd round pick mocked last year, the year before, the too early mock draft. This was a guy that could go in the 2nd round. You trade down and pick up a 3rd round pick, and you still get the guy that you guys wanted in Tyler Guyton. I wanted the Niners to take Tyler Guyton, so I like the pick. Marshawn Kneeland, for a player that you don't need to impact next year, it's a good pick. Cooper Beebe, I had him ranked a little bit higher than you, but obviously behind Christian Haynes. I was originally giving you guys a B- because I hate the fact that you didn't fill your biggest hole on your team in this draft. But then I thought about it, and I was like, well, the value of where they got the players and who they got and the moving up and down the board and everything that you guys did, I think it's an A- to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. My only gripe with my number one gripe with the Cowboys draft is not the Guyton stuff, because like you brought up, trading back in the first is really what gives Tyler Guyton a little bit more like, okay, I get it. Like, not only do we pick Guyton, but it allows us to pick Cooper Beebe as well. Is the Ryan Flournoy pick, the wide receiver out of the Southeast Missouri State, when Brendan Rice was on the board still, that really like irked me a lot. That bugged the shit out of me. So that really pissed me off. Like, that was the one thing while I was still watching for the Cowboys picks, and that pick came in. I'm like, what the fuck are we doing when he's like best available player, and the next best available player like after that is some fucking nobody? Like, what are we doing? So that's the only part where I was like, dude, this is fucking
Bro,
ridiculous.
Jerry Jones ain't drafting Jerry Rice's son. Get the fuck out of here. There ain't no way.
Denver Broncos, you want to go and take that one?
Yeah, I don't know what to do here. I guess it's a B minus, C plus for me. I think out of all these quarterbacks that we're looking at, Bo Nix is the one that's going to be like the most Sam Darnoldy. Like, the dude might be around, but he's going to be on a backup role by the time his second contract rolls around. I really like the Jonah Ellis pick. I really like Troy Franklin in the fourth.
Yep.
I think that's great value there. But it really just it depends on what you think of Bo Nix. And at number 12, even though we knew this was going to happen, but what are you going to do? You're not taking a player at 12 that's going to change your season next year any more than quarterback. And with Penix going 8, I really thought that Penix was the quarterback for the Broncos with Sean Payton. And so what are you going to do when he goes 8? So I guess I'll settle in at a B minus, just because they filled the quarterback. I like the next 2 picks they got. I love Troy Franklin in the 4th, but I don't know about Bo Nix, man.
Yeah, I give him a C plus, and a big part of it is Bo Nix there at 12. Obviously I had Bo Nix rated maybe a little bit higher than you did, but it's still at 12 is just way too high. I mean, there was a lot of quarterbacks in the draft who just went a little bit too high, in my opinion. So that's like kind of the whole thing that's holding the entire grade down. Just like you were talking about, Jonah Ellis in the 3rd could be really, really good. Troy Franklin in the 4th is ridiculous, and he should have gone a lot higher than that. Chris Abrams-Draine, cornerback, I saw going in closer to like high 4s, late 3s. And then Audric Estime I know is like a cult favorite running back for a couple of groups of people really like Audric Estime. So for a running back room that seems to have a lot of trouble staying healthy, grabbing another one to go by committee, it just kind of makes a lot of sense. But again, Bo Nix is really the main thing that's holding this entire class down. So the C plus there again, and I get it. You don't have a second round pick, and all the quarterbacks are flying off the board, and the next closest quarterback is like 4th round, Spencer Rattler, and he's not starting for your team. So I get it. It's just unfortunate with how the board fell for them. Detroit Lions.
Detroit was a B minus for me.
Wow, really?
Were you higher or lower?
I was a lot higher.
Here's my issue. They needed wide receiver. They didn't solve that. They drafted a safety that they're going to play at running back. And like, Manu is like, maybe he'll be something great, but I don't know about that pick. Now, and the thing about it is they already got tackles, so they're fine, right? But yeah, I just back-to-back corners, 1st and 2nd. I'm just not exactly sure. Like, I think they could have really used a wide receiver at one of those picks.
Okay. Yeah. I initially gave them a much higher grade than this. Not much higher, but I gave him a higher grade than this, but I gave him an A minus. Because Terran Arnold at pick 24 is really low for Terrion Arnold, in my opinion. Probably should have gone way higher. Ennis Rakestraw Jr., I'm pretty sure I said in one of the mocks before that Ennis Rakestraw is just one of Dan Campbell's guys. He feels like a Detroit Lion, so it kind of just made sense. Sion Vaki in the fourth. I hope he plays safety. I hope that they just announce him as a running back because that's how he was listed initially, and they didn't know how to announce him. I hope they play him as safety because I like him a lot more safety than the running back position. So I hope he plays there. Mekhi Wingo, super high floor guy. Both the defensive tackles from LSU that got drafted this year are both, I think, what was his name, Jordan Jefferson and Mekhi Wingo, really high ceiling guys that can develop into something nice. And then Christian Mahogany in the sixth is fucking ridiculous. That is the biggest travesty to me, that Christian Mahogany goes in the sixth round. This is a second round guy to me. Going in the sixth it might be close to my steal of the draft at that position there. So I gave him an A- because of, you're solidifying your cornerback room. That is not good. That was the Achilles heel of your entire defense. Solidifying it. Terrion Arnold's going to be immediate starter. Ennis Rakestraw might be close to an immediate starter. If not, he might be starting midway through the year. And again, some just either backup help at running back or safety, or shit, they might say, hey, we have an athlete with the new kickoff rules that we're going to go ahead and just use you in the kickoffs. And then just two really, really high ceiling guys in Mahogany and Wingo. So I gave him an A-. The Green Bay Packers, who had a shit ton of picks, as it literally takes a little bit to even scroll through all of them, I gave them a C. With all the picks that they had, some of them were really confusing. Jordan Morgan at 25 was probably where that conversation was starting. I had a lot of other guys in front of Jordan Morgan. I get it. He's a really high floor talent, and you need somebody to play that left tackle position to protect your quarterback in Jordan Love. Edgerrin Cooper, potentially, I guess, maybe playing edge. I don't see edge. I don't see Edgerrin Cooper as an edge at all. And I'm not even the biggest fan of him. I think he's a developmental linebacker. I know you liked him a lot more than that. But you have linebackers, and you have Mike linebackers, and you have off-ball linebackers already, and on-ball linebackers. You kind of have your linebacker room filled up already at that point. So picking him in the second, it's a little puzzling. Javon Bullard at that position in the late second is good to me. Marshawn Lloyd, another pick that I like, but then you just go like another linebacker and Tyron Hopper, and then it's just a bunch of just shit, and it's just roster fill at that point. I talked to you and I said, hey, don't be surprised if they package up a bunch of these picks and try to go up in the first or something like that. You know, I'd much rather them try to move up with a lot of these than pick some of the roster fill that we got out down here. And I know it's a really young, talented team here, but that's when you should be maybe trying to take more blue chip talent and taking those picks and moving up. You have that ability because your team is so young. I like the Michael Pratt thing in the seventh round. And then who tweeted out and said, I can't believe Kalen King is still available in the seventh. He was almost Mr. Irrelevant. Kalen King was awful last year, so I don't know what we're even talking about. So, yeah, again, it was a C to me.
Yes. Man, they had all these picks. They could have moved up. They could have done something really, really exciting.
Yeah.
Jordan Morgan at 25 is kind of like, woof. I think when they took the pick, I told you on the live stream, well, thank God, that way the 49ers can't take him. You know?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
I just, there's a lot that they could have done. I just don't think they needed this. I don't think they needed a bunch of like roster blah. You know what I mean? Like I like Javon Bullard. Obviously, they got a need at safety, guys from Georgia. Yeah. Marshawn Lloyd at running back. Okay, whatever. Do you need a running back in the third round when you have Josh Jacobs? It's just,
you already have your second string guy too.
I love Edgerrin Cooper, and then you follow it up with Tyron Hopper. I'm just a lot of it just seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like very Madden-y to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
like when you're drafting in Madden and you're like, all right, I'm not re-signing anyone over the age of 28. I'm just going to let all those guys go. And now I need 6 guys at these positions. They're never going to play. They're just going to be backups, but I need the roster. So I'm just going to go, okay, linebacker here, running back here, offensive tackle here. That's kind of what it felt like to me. So,
Right.
I always look at it as like the season they had last year. What from this draft class stands out to you that's going to help them take the next level? You know, maybe Bullard. But now that's
Yeah.
that's almost a 3rd round pick there. We'll see. If I was an expert, I'd be in a front office somewhere.
Right. And then we have the Houston Texans. Houston didn't have a ton of picks, especially really in the top half. They didn't really have a lot, but I still gave him a B minus. Drew's guy, Kamari Lassiter, going in the second is where he should have probably gone. Blake Fisher in the late second. I love that pick for them. Kalen Bullock in the third and Cade Stover in the fourth. All guys who I think are all going to make immediate impacts. You're not going to look at Cade Stover at the end of the year and be like, oh, wow, he had 600 receiving yards last year. No, this is probably like a 250 yard rookie tight end. But he's a really, really good blocking tight end. And when your starter is Dalton Schultz, who's really, really good in that regard and receiving, you need someone who can back it up with blocking when you have 2 tight end sets out there. So Cade Stover immediately comes in, and his blocking grade is I know isn't phenomenal, but if you go look at the film, I don't know where he's missing blocks or he's missing an assignment. So I think he's pretty phenomenal on that end. So I think they filled out a couple of really good roster spots to a team that looks pretty fucking stacked already. And you're just adding more young talent to it. So a B minus for me.
Yeah, to me, excellent value on Lassiter. Big fan of him. There's two years in a row I've been massive fans of two corners. Ringo last year and now Lassiter this year. I think you're throwing a little too much shade at my boy Cade Stover, though, man. He's a 3rd down assassin. He did this already with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, so the man might go
that's a good point.
Go for 25 to 30 catches next year, but 20 of them might be for first downs, and that's extremely valuable with a young quarterback. There's nothing they did here that like blew my socks off, but there's nothing here that they did that I hated. I've seen a lot of people giving them A's.
I don't know about that.
I just it was a good draft for them. This is a team that needs to get better, and they were a year ahead of schedule, and now they're adding a player like Lassiter to a really good defense, offensive tackle depth, adding a safety, Cade Stover. I like their off-season grade is very, very high.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So when you have a massive offseason, when you make massive upgrades in the offseason, you have very few holes. And I think that they've packaged this offseason free agency and the draft together nicely, and look out next year.
Definitely. What about the Indianapolis Colts? What do you give them?
I give them an A minus.
Okay.
Mostly on their first 2 picks, because they bucked conventional wisdom with Latu, and they took him, and he was the best edge rusher on the board, and they got him. And you get A.D. Mitchell at 52. And the thing about it is, I didn't blame the Buffalo Bills for not taking A.D. Mitchell, because they just got rid of Stephon Diggs. They just got rid of the drama. But this is a young team. You got a young quarterback. You need a little swag, and A.D. Mitchell can provide that. So I can't say that I know too much about their 5th round picks. The offensive tackle from Pittsburgh, I looked at him a little bit because the tackle class was so deep that I went out to about 10 or 15 players. But really, Latu there at 15, I loved it because we were pounding the table that he was number 1. And then A.D. Mitchell falling and them just coming up and doing what they need to do to take an impact player. It really just this whole thing just kind of relies on if their quarterback's healthy, because Gardner Minshew's gone, and we'll see. This is a draft that could prove pretty pivotal to them if they're going to take the next step here with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, this is also an A minus to me. Latu and Mitchell are obviously the big parts of that. I'm not gonna act like I watched a whole lot of Goncalves from Pitt. But Tanner Bortolini, I did watch a little bit of because there was from Cowboy side of things, there was whispers of maybe us being interested in Bortolini in around this range of the 4th round, especially around this range of picks. So I watched a little bit of him. This is, to me, he's a guy who's a developmental center that can walk in about year 3, probably be a starter somewhere on that offensive line outside of tackle because he doesn't have the exact length to play that. But I think this is a guy who could be an eventual starter on this team, with a Indianapolis offensive line that's been good for a while. And they're just going to kind of just reload with it with their offensive tackle and center picks. And again, they're immediate impact guys. And their GM he's a drafting guy. He loves doing that shit. You could see that draft season is his favorite season. So, and give him the benefit of the doubt with some of the picks he's made in the past. So this is definitely an A- to me. And then moving to the Jacksonville Jaguars, I gave them a B-. The Brian Thomas Jr. pick, moving back, and then still getting your guy and getting the return that you did, I really, really liked. Mason Smith in the second is super high to me. I don't like that one at all. I mentioned 2 defensive tackles from LSU. I didn't even mention Mason Smith. I mentioned Jordan Jefferson and Mekhi Wingo because those are the guys I was familiar with. Mason Smith, not at all, because he was the guy that was buried on the depth chart to me. I don't like the pick. Jarrian Jones in the third, he was in my top 7, 8 corners. Very, very, very good slot corner. What makes it a little bit confusing to me is the fact that he's a slot corner and you already have a player to play the slot already at this point. So Jarrian isn't very good on the outside. He was burned on the outside quite a bit over at Florida State. I hope they still use him in the slot where he could play his fullest potential. And again, the only other one that I know of is the Jordan Jefferson pick, who's just super high ceiling guy. So too high for Mason Smith. I hope that they use Jarrian correctly, and then Brian Thomas is good, but then everything else is like, okay, not super familiar with the rest of these guys. They're taking him kind of high compared to who else is on the board as well.
Yeah, I was a little bit higher on this. I gave him an A- because I absolutely love that they picked up 2 mid-round picks for Brian Thomas. Trading back, they still get their guy. The Mason Smith pick is stupid, but that's just them filling a massive need that they have. And then the Javon Foster, you got Walker Little and their other tackle are both free agents in 2025. Cam Robinson, is that who it is?
Yeah, Cam Robinson. Yeah.
You're probably not paying both those guys, so you get this guy in, if fills in for injury, a little swing tackle this year, and then ready to take over at right tackle next year. So that's good, future planning. And then you can't forget that they took a 6th-round pick in a weak draft and flipped it for Mac Jones with a quarterback that is definitely, there's already been some talk that they're a $215 million extension for him, Trevor Lawrence. I'm not 100% sure about that. He needs to come out and ball out this year. And if he doesn't, then you already have your bridge quarterback on the roster. So, frankly, when you identify a player that's your guy like Brian Thomas, and then you're able to pick up 3 other picks and still get your guy, that's great value. And that's
absolutely.
That's using your assets. That's using what you have to increase your assets. And I'm a big fan of that. So A- for me.
Get it? And then moving on to your favorite team, the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you give Kansas City?
I would give him an A-, unfortunately. Xavier Worthy is probably, in my opinion, too high for him, but in their offense, he fits perfectly. So that's a perfect fit. The Kingsley pick, I really, really like that. I don't have a thought on the Jared Wiley pick. I didn't really look at him too much, but then Jaden Hicks at safety, getting him in the 4th, I really like that. But, they added an element to their offense here that's been missing since they traded away Tyreek Hill. Although I shouldn't say it's missing because they've won 2 Super Bowls since they traded away Tyreek Hill. So it's really hard to be critical of anything they do at this point. They had no wide receivers
Yeah.
on the roster last year, and they were still insanely successful and won a Super Bowl despite losing in the overtime. Being behind in overtime, they won the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, I like the offensive tackle pick, and Xavier Worthy is, he ran the fastest 40 in combine history. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I gave it a B plus. Yeah, Worthy too high. Obviously, if he goes to a place like Buffalo, then it's like a really, really lower grade because Xavier Worthy can't play in the cold, most likely. So I have a lot of questions with Worthy, but in that offense, I think it definitely is okay. Kingsley Sumatia is like my tackle 10, and to be a developmental tackle and get him at the back end of the second is really good. You and I actually mocked this the opposite way. We had them taking like Guyton in the first and then taking a wide receiver in the second. So we had this the opposite way, which is they ended up doing it anyways. Totally okay. Yeah, I haven't looked into Jared Wiley too much, but getting another tight end on the roster when Travis Kelce is getting older, even though he just did sign an additional extension. Jared Hicks in the fourth is a great value. Hunter Norzad, another one of those guys I looked into at center because I thought Dallas was potentially going to pick him maybe in the fourth or the fifth. If they picked up a fourth. I thought this is a guy that maybe we would have picked up. And funny enough, it's a pick from Dallas that ends up giving them Norzad. So I think that Kansas City has one of the best interior offensive linemen in the league. They're three front right there, the center guard situation. One of those guys ends up going out. They're aging. They don't want to pay them. I think Hunter Norzad could step into one of those situations. He's not going to play center most likely unless Creed goes down. But he could play guard as well. So I give it a B plus. The only issue is just Wiley in the fourth and then Worthy that high. But again, it's just about Kansas City getting them. So they're still a B plus. And I can't really say shit about shit because it's Kansas City. Who gives a fuck? Like, they're going to do whatever the hell they want to do. And they're still going to go as far as they want to because, they have, number 15. The Las Vegas Raiders, and get this, I'm going to go ahead and give the Raiders an A draft. The Raiders actually having a good draft is bonkers to me. Brock Bowers at pick 13. We had him going later. A lot of people had him going higher. It's kind of hard to mock a tight end, especially as good as Bowers. Bowers isn't seen as a traditional tight end. We're probably going to still see Michael Mayer play a lot of that role, but Brock Bowers is going to be on the field 24/7. He's going to end up catching screens, catching underneath, catching over the top. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants. And he's going to be that ultimate safety blanket for, I guess, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, where we're starting at that place. So Brock Bowers 13 is just best player available. Jackson Powers Johnson, the best center or the second best center, however you want to see him in this draft, going in the second is really good. DeMar Glaze, I'm not a fan of going in the third, but Demetrion Richardson, developmental speed corner, shoots out of a cannon. Tommy Eichenberg is a pure linebacker to use on passing downs, third down linebacker, not for rushing, but for coverage. He's a really good coverage back. So linebacker. So I really like that what they did, especially again, those first two picks really kind of sway my opinion heavily. And then I like the development they got in the fourth and the fifth round moving forward, especially a team that needs, that needs a lot of offensive line help, that needs more weapons. They need corner, they need linebacker, they need it all. And I think they filled out a lot of those needs in this draft with good value.
I feel like the Raiders might have been thinking about quarterback at 13, and that obviously didn't work out for them, so they took Brock Bowers. Definitely. It's a curious pick to me. I'm gonna give him a B plus. I feel like maybe they had a different player they were targeting, and then they just went best player available. I know that you just painted a pretty picture of Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers all over the place, but this comes back to me with their head coach they have and the offensive coordinator who was fired by the Bears, who couldn't make it happen with Justin Fields and the Bears that were there. Obviously, we aren't that high on Justin Fields. I just wonder if they're going to be able to utilize Brock Bowers in the way that they need to make him worth the 13th pick for them. Jackson Powers Johnson at 44 is awesome value for them. I'm not a super
Definitely.
big fan of Glaze, so a little bit of a disagreement there. But I love Richardson in the fourth. I actually watched a lot of him because of the 49ers needing corners. So it's a B minus, B plus to me. Um, but if they come out and utilize Brock, the Falcons absolutely did a disservice taking Kyle Pitts because they've absolutely done nothing with him, absolutely
Yep.
nothing with him. So that's an F of a draft pick for me. So if Brock Bowers comes out this year and he doesn't do nothing, this is an F draft to me because you could have taken a different player. But much like the Michael Penix draft, where I said in a couple of years this could be boom or bust, it's the same thing with Brock Bowers. If they utilize him correctly, if they do what they should be doing, you know, if you had an offensive coordinator that everyone was excited about over there, then I would be a lot higher on this. I just hope that they're going to be able to make it work because there's not a ton of two tight end stuff that NFL teams run. So hopefully they can make it work out for them. Otherwise, it's just
Definitely.
a typical Raiders pick.
It's true. All right, the Chargers. What do you give the Chargers?
I'm gonna give the Chargers an A minus. I actually really
Yeah.
like the Chargers draft. I showed
Yeah,
you
I'm
the
with you.
text from my Chargers friend. They hated the Joe Alt pick. Doesn't make any sense to me. I love the Lad McConkey pick.
Yep.
We knew Harbaugh was going to take a Michigan man, and they took Junior Colson.
Yep.
I do give the Chargers an F for not taking Blake Corum because that sucks. But they just
It's fair.
they need a lot, man. They have their franchise quarterback, and that's about it.
Yep.
And they get Brendan Rice, so
Yeah, and I gave him an A, just a little bit higher than you, and I think just everything you already highlighted between Alt and McConkey and Colson, and then Rice, but also Cam Hart was really, really, really high on my cornerbacks list. I'm a huge fan of Cam Hart, and going in the fifth is way lower than I expected Cam to go. So, a lot of value, and I would say that LA just kind of picked guys where they were supposed to go, all in the top five. McConkey top of the second, Colson top of the third, but then Hart's a steal, and then you get Rice, which is a steal. So I really like what they did. Again, they're getting an A, definitely for me.
the Chargers kind of look like they ran the PFF mock draft generator like 1,000 times and then just took
Right.
whichever picks popped up the most. That's just who they took, which that's not a
Yeah.
bad thing. I'm not saying anything negative of them. It's just, but the team that needs everything, I don't blame Chargers fans for being underwhelmed by an offensive tackle there, especially when they could have taken Malik Neighbors. But
I get it.
Rashawn Slater was absolutely terrible last year in the running game, and that's what Harbaugh wants to do. So I don't blame him for going out and getting a tackle there.
Yeah, so Joe's probably going to play the right. And then the Rams, I gave the Rams a B plus. Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Blake Corum, Cam Kitchens, all really, really good picks. And then they have a ton of picks below that. KT Leviston is probably the only one I'm super familiar with in the seventh. Pretty close to Mr. Irrelevant there at that spot. I just, with the limited amount of stuff, they did all of their damage there in the first 3 rounds, which most teams do anyways. So I really like everything they did at that point with the B plus. What I am a little confused about is Corum in the third. Kyron Williams did a lot of damage last year, a ton of touchdowns, a lot of yards. He was really good. Corum in the third's a little head scratching with some of the players that were still on the board. So, on the note of the Rams, did you see the call to Braden Fisk? Have you seen that clip yet? It's pretty cool. So the clip of Braden Fisk, it's the GM calling him and telling him, "Hey, we're gonna draft you." And obviously he's like, "Man, I'm super excited." He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna hand you off to the coach." And McVay gets on. He goes, "Oh, we're so fucking excited. Just we're fucking fired up over here." And he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna play with Verse again." And he was like, "Yeah, we're actually trying to get him to come over here and call you instead of the GM. He's actually on his way now, and he doesn't know why." And so Verse walks into the room, and the coach at that moment, and the coach, Sean McVay goes, "Hey, talk to your new teammate Braden Fisk." And he was like, "Fisk," and then he was like, "What's up, Verse?" He goes, "Ain't no way, no, ain't no way." And he looks over the coach. He goes, "I'm so fucking proud of you," and they just start fucking crying. Yeah, it's a pretty cool clip. So Again, B plus for me with them.
Yeah. Super social media viral clip aside, the only small thing that takes us from an A minus to a B plus for me here is that they did give up draft capital to move up to 39 to take Fisk. They had
Yeah.
just sat at 52. They could have had Hall. If they believe in their player, they believe in their player, but they gave up a draft pick to move up and get this guy, so he better hit.
Yeah. The defensive line's looking pretty good, huh?
Yeah, we'll see if it matters.
Moving on to the Miami Dolphins, what do you give them?
Sucker. This is a C plus to me. I love Chop. I really did, but 21 is just like, whew,
well, they have
really high when you have other needs. And but the Jalen Wright in the fourth, I love that. That's good value there. I did see some Malik Washington. You know, the thing is it's Mike McDaniel, so he'll be able to use some of the speed and stuff that they have. It's funny, I see Chop and I see speed, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. No wonder Mike McDaniels loves him, even though he doesn't have much to do with the defensive side. But
right.
You know, we'll see. That's going to be an absolutely phenomenal pick or an absolutely terrible pick. Again, I don't think Chop Robinson is a middle of the line player in the NFL 8 years from now. He's either booming or he's out. You know, he's either a perennial all-star or he ain't in the league anymore. So we'll see. And that's a hefty thing to do at 21 when you have a lot of other things. Patrick Paul's okay. I wasn't a big fan of him. I didn't have him ranked very highly on my tackle rankings that I did. But again, like I said, I'm not in a front office anywhere. So
Chop when there's other guys on the board is kind of confusing to me between the centers that were there, literally every center that was sitting there. Plus you still had Jazon Newton sitting there, and you have a big need at that defensive tackle position. And even with the picks that you made, you still have a need there at those positions. So a little puzzled from that one. Patrick Paul in the second, not a huge fan of that one as well. But like you said, Jalen Wright, big fan of. Malik Washington in the sixth, I'm a big fan of. And then Mo Kamara, I actually like out of Colorado State in the fifth. I think that's perfect development. I like him there.
The only thing, though, is they traded a third-round pick away for a fourth-round pick to take a running back when they already have two, and I'd forgotten about that. So we'll see. I mean, most of these drafts, everything relies on your first-round pick, and generally when your first-round pick doesn't make it, and there was a couple guys that were drafted that are really just like boom or bust here.
Yep. And then going down, dude, website's going crazy. Minnesota Vikings. I'm gonna go a B plus for the Minnesota Vikings. And you get McCarthy at 10. You didn't have to give up that pick 23 to go ahead and go get him. And then you get a top 3 edge rusher in this class in Dallas Turner as well in the first round. Kyrie Jackson the fourth, I think, is really good. Really good value. So I think my whole grade depends on these 3 right here. This could easily be a B minus because of the picks that they traded away, and the fact that they only have like a first rounder and like a fifth rounder or something like that next year is a very alarming for Minnesota. So JJ McCarthy better be pretty damn good, or you're gonna be looking really fucking stupid by the end of the year.
No, man, they're gonna restock that whole draft cabinet when they trade away Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, because no wide receiver plays for Minnesota. Randy Moss, Stephon Diggs. Now next is going to be Justin Jefferson. They're all going to be gone.
I gave it an A minus here. The main reason for that is they were looking at potentially trading up those picks to go get McCarthy. They get him at 10. I love that. Yeah. Dallas Turner, everybody and their mother had him going 8 to the Falcons, and they get him, 9 picks later. That's great. I love Kyrie Jackson. I think he's he's super long. He's super physical.
Yeah, definitely.
He has that Richard Sherman, Tyreek Woolen type, as long as he doesn't stay too handsy and can stay away from the penalties, can be really, really good. I don't know about the whole kicker thing when your draft cabinet is so, at that point, just trade that 6th out and, pick up a.
Yeah.
Are you still there?
I am, but
Your face disappeared. It says El Gato.
oh, my camera stopped working.
Maybe you're being attacked by. Isn't that cat Gato?
Yeah. There we go.
Hey, he's back, ladies and gentlemen. The attractive face of the 2020 podcast.
You're the athletic face. Whoever fits the bill for you.
Fryermuth.
All right, New England Patriots. What do you want to go ahead and give them?
You know, there was talk in the beginning of the draft season that Drake May was better than Caleb Williams. It obviously did not shake out that way, but getting him at 3 is great.
Yep.
Polk is, he's definitely a wide receiver. Washington is known for really good wide receivers, and I actually like Caden Wallace. There was a couple of tackles that were taken in the 3rd round that I was kind of like I was a little weary of and wasn't a big fan of, but Caden Wallace I'm a fan of, and Javon Baker in the 4th. I really like that pick also. So,
dude, how do you not get excited for Javon Baker when he goes up to his press conference and he's asked about what impact he's going to make for the team, and he says, "Get your popcorn ready. I make people in wheelchairs stand up." How do you not get excited for that guy? Fucking, I'm gonna go draft him in my dynasty draft now just because of that. Fuck, man.
I like a lot of what they did. You know what I mean? It's a new era for them. Have you seen all the Keon Coleman stuff that's been on social media?
Yeah, I have.
Him walking around in that yellow jacket.
He's fucking funny.
He's hilarious, man.
Tom Izzo? No, Macy's, man.
Yeah, he's like, I'm about to go clearance. I got to go get 4 or 5 more. They're on clearance. They're like $89. And then he's like walking out of the cold room and there's all the smoke. He's like, oh, holy shit, we got to play the Undertaker's music right here. Turn the lights off. This is like, it's like, did this guy go to Highlands High School in Sacramento? Like, is he not used to all the cool shit that these teams have? Like, that's kind of what it seemed like to me. So, not to hijack this by talking about Keon Coleman, I apologize. So with the Patriots, we're going to go ahead and this is a solid B for me. Drake May, they fill the need. Jalen Polk, they fill the need. Caden Wallace, they fill the need. Layden Robinson is definitely a guy that they took in the 4th round instead of Cedric Von Prawn. So, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
But hey, at least they didn't take him in the 1st like Cole Strange.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I gave him a B+. Just because it's obvious that they're trying to surround Drake May with weapons, and I appreciate that. Between the Polk pick, who has, Drake May obviously has some questions of his accuracy just randomly. He can make some of the craziest throws on the run and while he's escaping the pocket and all this stuff. And then sometimes he just makes really dumb errors. And Polk has a really, really wide range of catchability when the ball's thrown. His catch radius is massive. So getting him there in the 2nd, I think, just makes a lot of sense for him. And then Javon Baker is a manufactured touch guy. So I think that with the weapons that they're surrounding May with, I think that I like it a little bit more. So giving a B+ just kind of makes sense a little bit for me. And then the New Orleans Saints, I gave an A- to. And almost everything is predicated on those first 2 picks. Talisi Fuanga at 14 when we had him going potentially 10, to the Jets originally, or maybe, he even had talk of even higher in the top 10. Kool-Aid McKinstry, my corner 1 for me. So that's getting him at pick 41 is crazy. Spencer Rattler makes a ton of sense for a guy who needs the development and is going to go ahead and sit behind a quarterback that he could potentially take over for because the quarterback who's starting is not very, very good. So everything's predicated on the first 2 picks, but then you throw in the potential quarterback that is going to develop in the future as well. And I really like the draft.
It's an A to me. You get Kool-Aid at 41. That's awesome. One of the F brothers at 14. That's awesome. Rattler in the 5th. It's great value, especially considering Derek Carr's a trash can. And Derek Carr's backup is Jake Haener, who's famous for being the quarterback at Fresno State. So, it's an A to me. I mean, it wouldn't have really mattered. You knew you were going to get a good tackle at 14, so you don't get much credit at taking a tackle at 14 because you knew you were going to get one. And I don't think you really get that much credit for Kool-Aid falling to you, but it doesn't matter. You just drafted 2 starters way below their original ADP. So,
yeah. And they traded up, go get him, right? I mean, so it just makes sense.
him getting past 31 was definitely a decision.
Yeah, right. New York Giants, first New York team.
It's a B.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
I give a B plus.
You got to take Neighbors. Obviously, they could have got a little bit of higher grade from me if they took a Rome instead, because it would have made us look like geniuses.
Right.
A lot of talent on the board at pick 47, and they go safety. That's definitely a decision and kind of a weaker safety class. But I love Andrew Phillips, so I'm all about the Andrew Phillips thing.
That's funny because I like the pick at 47 because it's a weaker safety class, and this is safety 1 pretty comfortably, and they lose their starting safety in free agency. I think this just is filling a need that they needed to really address in the draft between the safety and the wide receiver and their corners. I'm not a huge fan of Andrew Phillips, but going in the 3rd is his range, so I'm okay with that. And then Theo Johnson in the 4th, when you have a lot of questions about your starting tight end, if he's going to retire, maybe if he's even if he wants to play. If,
Darren Waller is literally a scam. He's an absolute scam. What a bum.
Yep. So I like the pick in the 4th. And then the New York Jets, the other New York team, I gave a B- to. I like Fashanu at 11. I'm glad they went Fashanu over Bowers. I get it. You have your 2 starting tackles already, but one of those guys are not going to play at one time or another. He's going to play left. I'll guarantee you this. He's going to play left tackle and right tackle this year because both those guys are not going to play at one point or another, and he's going to have to fill in, whether it's injury or rest or whatever it is. Malachi Corley in the 3rd, I really like because he's a manufactured touch guy, and with Aaron Rodgers being there and you want the ball out as quick as possible, makes a ton of sense. Braylon Allen, I'm not a huge Braylon Allen guy. It's fine in the 4th, I guess, but his vision fucking sucks. He's a power back. It's fine, whatever. If you want to use him on goal line situations, fantasy managers aren't going to be too happy for poaching away those touchdowns. And then Jordan Travis in the 5th is just a potential developmental guy who I don't think won't ever really start, but he's there at least.
I hated this draft. I gave him a D.
Oh, really?
I gave him a D.
Shit.
Yeah. They drafted a player that if everything goes the way they want it to, won't even play at 11.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Corley is like, okay, whatever. Like, okay, sure. Like, Braylon Allen sucks. Jordan Travis sucks. Isaiah Davis sucks. Like, what did you like? I'm just like, they're just fucking with Aaron Rodgers at this point, aren't they? Like, you drafted a tackle that's not gonna play. Like, hello, why didn't you just take Brock Bowers? Like, what are we doing here? Like, now hey, listen. Assuming your tackle gets hurt and he has to play, congratulations. But why did you go sign him then? Like, why did you go sign him if you were going to take this guy 11? You knew there was going to be tackles here. Why did you go give him the money? Everything about their offseason doesn't make sense. And from what I heard, their head coach was absolutely furious about the tackle pick here at 11. So,
oh, wow.
Not that their head coach, my boy, is going to be probably lasting very much longer as their head coach, but yeah, that's a D. That's my second word. I mean, the Falcons are a little better, but I think the New York Jets had my worst draft grade.
What about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Oh, that's an A+, brother. That's an A+. Yep, that's an A+. When you get Cooper DeJean, who was my number 1 corner on the board, who I think could have gone 13, you get him at 40, and you get Quignon, that's an A+.
Yeah, between those picks alone, Jalix Hunt to me is a little bit high in the 3rd, but I like Shipley, a receiving back at the 4th, and Nia Smith is developmental in the 5th.
That's Jeremiah fine. Trotter?
Yeah, the legacy pick is in the 5th.
Let's go.
It's definitely good. I gave him an A. And then Johnny Wilson, the sixth, is a guy who maybe could have gone a little bit higher, but with his questions with the size, is he a tight end? Is he a wide receiver? Is definitely going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye out in Philly. So, yeah.
I love the Cooper DeJean CeeDee Lamb thing. That's very exciting to me.
So they don't. And what's interesting to me about Philly is they took these two corners who are going to be their very obvious two starting corners next year. But this year, they can't really. They're going to have guys who are maybe going to be sitting on the bench, like James Bradbury, that they can't get rid of because of money wise, who are going to eat up a ton of cap space, but you can't play him.
He ain't making the team, bro. I don't think so. I know the dead cap hit sucks, but you just punt, move on.
Yeah, I guess so.
I have this dream of Cooper DeJean just like shutting CeeDee Lamb down twice this year, and your dad having an absolute meltdown because he wanted him so bad, like pick sixes and all this shit, and your dad just like having a literal freak out because he wanted Cooper DeJean so badly. If the 49ers are taking him at 31, I was getting him the jersey. I was going to send him the 49ers Cooper DeJean jersey. So,
yeah, it definitely should have gone a hell of a lot higher. I don't care what anyone says. Even if he is a safety, it should have definitely gone a lot higher than that. I don't get it. Pittsburgh. This is my other A+. Easily my other A+.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Fautanu, Frazier, Wilson, other Wilson, McCormick. I mean, those guys alone, we're talking about starter. Like, these guys are all like starting guys, whether it's year one or year two. I know Peyton Wilson has a lot of injury questions and concerns, but McCormick, I know you know that I'm a big McCormick guy, and getting him in the fourth is great value for him.
Did you hear the Peyton Wilson ACL thing?
No, I didn't.
So the reason why he fell to the third is he doesn't have an ACL in his right knee.
I heard that he actually might have a really short career, but then that makes sense too. Yeah. So I think it's a bunch of immediate impact guys that come onto the field, and Pittsburgh just knocked it out of the park, man, with a bunch of guys that have a bunch of flexibility with Fautanu, guard tackle, Frazier, just your pure center, all, your what is it? All-state wrestling champ, Roman Wilson, your underneath slot guy that you really need to pair along with George Pickens, Peyton Wilson, your starter, and then again Mason McCormick, who I just think is going to be a monster in the league.
Yeah, I went A- here. I just felt like they could have done a little bit more to help out Russell Wilson / Justin Fields, who's apparently going to return kicks. Did you hear that today?
Yeah, I did.
It was wild. And they declined the fifth round option on Najee Harris today. Fautanu, starter, Frazier, like, I get it all. There was a lot of impact wide receivers sitting there that could have changed something for them this year. And I'm not exactly sure if Roman Wilson is it's not a Roman Wilson thing. It's I don't believe in George Pickens thing, just to be clear. I really like Roman Wilson.
Yeah.
So, and this is just me nitpicking and picking a different grade than you did, because it was an excellent draft for the Steelers. Unfortunately, both their quarterbacks suck.
Yeah. Your favorite team?
Go ahead.
Okay. Or is it just going to go all the way down to the bottom? That's cool.
You know what the thing about this is? I had in my mock drafts, I wanted us to take a wide receiver, and then I wanted us to take a corner, and then I wanted us to take an offensive lineman. And we took a wide receiver, we took a corner, we took an offensive lineman. I love the safety pick. I think that the wide receiver from Arizona is being slept on a little bit. I think the Isaac Guerendo pick was stupid. Like, the dude, I don't believe in him as a ball player at all. I actually think the other wide receiver we took, the other running back we took, is way better than him. But I really like Dominic Puny. I really like getting the safety there. Safety wasn't the thing about it. Is wide receiver, corner, guard, safety. All those were needs. We filled all the needs. And the 49ers admitted that they only had you sent it to me, right? They only had 15 first round grades on players. And then they had one of the guys that are really connected to them, Mike Silver, tweets out that they're taking Cooper DeJean, And then the 49ers admitted after the draft that they gave the two names to two different people. That way they could figure out who the hell was leaking shit. So the Cooper DeJean gets out and they fired the guy that leaked it. And then they take Ricky. So it's just one of those things where I've said this a couple of times now. They identified the player that they wanted. They spent the entire time on the phone trying to trade back to take him in the second. Couldn't get anybody to make the trade with them. And so they just took him at their pick. So they identified their player and they took him. Because they reached a little bit, it's a B- to me. I really like Puny. Like I said, I really like the safety, and I really like Renardo Green. But man,
it's a B-.
The AD Mitchell thing, the Kool-Aid McKinstry thing, the Cooper DeJean thing. It's just like, whew. I don't know how you don't have a first round grade on Cooper DeJean. Unless they think he's a safety. And then maybe they just say he's a safety and they can get a safety in the fourth.
I guess. Yeah, it's a B- to me. Ricky Pierce obviously way too high in my opinion. Renardo Green, there were some other corners on the board that I would have liked more than Green. I don't hate it. I would just prefer some other guys. He's a guy who gets in trouble on deep routes and he gets grabby on deep routes. I mean, you already have that on your team. You know, you already have a guy that he gets thrown at going deep and he's gonna, get a DPI and then they're gonna advance the ball. So if you already have that on a team, Renardo's a little bit better, most likely. I really like the Puny pick. The Puny pick is home run, guard, tackle flexibility, especially on that right-hand side where you guys actually need help. So I think he's an immediate starter. Like today, Dominic Puny is going to start at one of those right tackle, right guard positions, I think. Mustafa, I've heard a lot about. I haven't watched the film on him yet. I'm meaning to go back to a couple of these guys to watch him. So I haven't
he was
watched
a
that
free
one quite
pick,
yet.
so
yeah, fuck off.
For those that aren't aware, that pick came from the Trey Lance to the Cowboys trade. That's why he's so angry.
Hey, we should have just picked up his fifth round option. Or fifth year option. I'm just saying, dude.
Hey, I'm gonna put this out here now, though. Ricky's gonna be really good for us.
He probably is
because
he probably is.
He is awesome at those deep crossers, and that's what Brock absolutely freaking loves. And he blocks downfield, and
he's fearless, dude.
The thing
truly
about
fearless.
The thing about watching AD Mitchell is I already knew the 49ers were never going to draft that dude because he doesn't want to get his hands dirty. Block. I'm like, man, when he ain't playing for us, I'd love to have him, but he ain't playing for us. So
yep, yeah. The Guerrero pick is just like he's a combine monster. He's probably not going to be very good. And yeah, Jacob Cowing is a guy who's gotten a lot of hype as like a late round sleeper. And get him in the fourth, I think, is the value that you should be getting him at. So I think he could be pretty damn good for you guys. So yeah, so I went B-.
You know, Pearsall played with Brandon Ayuk.
No, I didn't know that.
You know who their quarterback was?
Where did Brandon Ayuk play again? Playing in Arizona, right? It's Jaden Daniels, huh?
My guy, Jaden Daniels. God, I hope he's good because I've talked so much shit in his favor. He might be terrible. 40 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He better be good.
Seattle Seahawks. I went with a B for the Seattle Seahawks. Byron Murphy, Christian Haynes, two of my favorite players in this draft. The only unfortunate thing is you don't have much past that. Like, you don't have a second round pick. So it's like, okay, like you couldn't really make any damage there. There are some linebackers outside of Trice Knight in the fourth to go ahead and go grab. There was guys outside of AJ Barner in the fourth to go ahead and go grab. Like, there was other needs, in my opinion, to go ahead and grab at positions that you needed and you didn't address them. But the Byron Murphy stuff and the Christian Haynes thing is what's going to go ahead and solidify as a B for me. I really love those two picks. Christian Haynes, my number one interior offensive lineman, my number one guard. And then Byron Murphy, my number one interior defensive lineman, like by far, not even close. So, but the rest of the picks, I'm head scratching about. I'm just kind of confused. Just because of the guys who are on the board, not the positions they were filling, but just the guys who were left there. Just a little worrisome. So a B.
Yeah, B+ for me. It was pretty common knowledge that they were absolutely in love with Brian Murphy. You get a day one starter in Christian Haynes in the third. That's awesome value. They're a terrible tackling defense, and Trice Knight apparently
Yeah.
was the best tackling linebacker in the draft, people said. And then AJ Barner fills a hole left by Will Dissly. So they had things they needed to fill, and they filled the holes. Unfortunately, their quarterback's not good enough to take them to the next level, especially with how much better the Rams, 49ers, and Cardinals got in this draft. So
Yep.
tough for them, but maybe they would have taken Penix at 16. Obviously, they never had a shot at that.
Absolutely. Tampa Bay. What'd you give Tampa Bay?
This is a B- for me. I like the Graham Barton pick just because he plays all over the offensive line, and I think that type of flexibility is needed. The Chris Braswell thing, I think it's funny they have him listed at edge there because I guess I don't see him really as an edge, but or I guess maybe he is an edge. That's the problem is we're having this conversation about a guy taking it pick 57. You can't have that type of conversation with a guy taking pick 57. Bucky Irving at 4 is my favorite pick that they made because it's something that actually helps them. You sign your quarterback to a big old extension, you bring your Hall of Fame wide receiver back, and then you go, kind of bleh with your first couple of picks. That's, this seems like you love this draft, don't you?
I do love this
draft.
Of
course you do. This seems like a Jacob Taylor draft.
Why? What's wrong with this draft?
I don't know. It's just, I guess it's good value all over the place. Graham Barton's cool. Braswell's cool. Smith is cool.
Listen, they had their center retire, right? And they need to fill that void. Graham Barton comes in and fills it. They need edge help, guys to get into the backfield. Chris Braswell fills that role. He was my edge 6 in this class, and he went, I think, exactly where he should have gone, maybe even a little bit higher. Tyke Smith, I haven't done a whole lot of homework on, but I know that on YouTube, I don't know if you're familiar with the franchise guy. He had he had Tyke Smith as his safety 1 in this class. So when I haven't done any research on him at all, and so I put a little bit of credence there. I got to do a little bit more research on Tyke, but Jalen McMillan as coming in as the 3rd wide receiver immediately to be the underneath guy, I think is super, super important for Baker. And then Bucky is great value in the 4th right there. So I like the draft a lot. It's an A-. Apparently it's a me draft. So I'm a huge fan of it. The Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans.
I don't know what to do here, man. T'Vondre Sweat is awesome at 38. It's good value for a guy that got a DWI. I'm just saying, crazy. He probably would have gone higher, right? Like he falls because shit. I mocked him in the 1st originally. With mock draft 2.0, I think.
Yeah,
I think this draft really just. Honestly, I could give this draft an F. I could. J.C. Latham at 7. I could give this draft an F. But again, I'm going to give them credit for identifying their guy and bucking what everyone else was doing and just saying, hey, J.C. Latham's our guy. We're going to stick it. You know what the thing about J.C. Latham is I thought he was a guard. And this isn't the Skoronski thing that we did last year either. Like, I thought he was a guard. And if you're taking him at 7, you believe he's like left tackle potential. Can't take him at 7 if you don't think he's left tackle potential, in my opinion.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I gave it a C+. Just because Latham's too high for me, but again, you go out and you get the guy that you want. But I think that there's the offensive tackles that were there available for you were way better. And then T'Vondre Sweat has way too many questions about character stuff and the DWI stuff. And he's boom or bust. He's either going to be out of the league or he's going to be, a long-time starter. There's only one Vita Vea. He's Vita Vea or he's out of the league. There's really no in between. Cedric Gray in the 4th. I'm not a huge fan of because he's more raw than a 4th round guy. I think he's closer to like a 5th round pick. I don't think he was worth, and it's an early 4th as well. So I give it a C+ because I'm not a huge fan of some of the picks and where they went. Yeah, they addressed the needs that they needed to, but there was other guys sitting there, in my opinion, that they could have taken. So C+ for me. And then the last team to go over is the Washington Commanders, who I gave an A+. -2.
That's too low, dog. That's too low.
That's not too low.
That's too low.
Well, it's too low because you take Jaden Daniels with 2. There you go. See? So fuck you, okay? Johnny Newton in the second is crazy value. Mike Sanderstill is one of my favorite.
Great value.
Yeah, he's corner 6 for me in this class. Slot corner 1 for me easily. Ben Sinnott in the second.
Slight stretch. That's the only reason they're not an A+.
Brandon Coleman as a guard in the third, I'm okay with. Luke McCaffrey taking a flyer on him in the third, the last pick in the third. I think that's okay too. I like those.
He's a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, and that's exactly where he's going to step into, right? You already have a Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin. He's going to step in to go ahead and develop a little bit further and to go ahead and step in a little bit, step in with Terry McLaurin, who's going to help him out with the route running stuff. He's already a decent route runner. I think is going to make him a pretty good player in the future.
Stop putting all those ads up on our screen, bro. They ain't paying us.
I know. I don't know what the hell is happening, man. Just yeah, it's not me. I swear. All right, what do you give the shitheads?
It's an A-. I agree with you. I just love Jaden Daniels. Listen, I'm thinking about getting me a Jaden Daniels jersey, bro. I'm so convinced. I'm so thoroughly convinced
about him.
Yeah, man, he can throw the football. People who are ignorant are going to think he's Lamar Jackson. He's just going to run all over the place, but the man can throw the football.
Yeah, that's why it's an A- to me. Again, you know how I feel about Jaden Daniels, but you get the guy that you want to get. I get it. It's why it's an A- and not like I'm being egregious and being fucking stupid and being like it's a B- because Jaden Daniels is a second round player. Like I get it. You know, I get the potential. You know, I even think that Jaden Daniels has a high floor. You know, as a running quarterback. So staying healthy is going to be his number one thing. I'm just strike Mace there.
He's going to lead the rookie quarterbacks in touchdowns.
Total touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so.
It's not even going to be close.
I don't think so.
Caleb's going to throw like 24.
No, he's going to throw like 31.
Nah, I don't think so.
And he's gonna rush for 7.
Caleb?
He's gonna go crazy.
Nah, bro, come on.
He's actually, you just don't know this. He's actually Jalen Hurts, and he's just gonna they're gonna tush push every single time on the one.
That'd be wild.
Yep. DeAndre Swift's like, hey, I seen this before. Like, I know exactly what's going on. Like, put me in the backfield. I ain't gonna touch the ball on the one. Don't even got to give me the ball. Just give it to Caleb. Bam. There we go. See.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so that's all of our grades, all 32 teams. Drew, are you ready to run through these NBA playoffs?
Nope. I need a potty break.
No. Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right. Good guy. Nobody on the live stream. All right. You ready to go?
Do.
All right. You want to just go ahead and let's start. Let's go ahead and start in the East.
Let's
Okay.
just make sure let's just go into the playoffs and skip the play-in bullshit. We don't need to talk about that.
Oh yeah. No, I ain't talking no play-in. I'm good on
Perfect.
that. Let's just start at the top, the very top of the league, not just the East. The Boston Celtics defeating the Miami Heat in the series 4-1. So it's not super interesting to talk about. I'm not worried about, when I was over for the draft, you were asking me about, the Miami game and, them winning that one game and how was it. And it's just, it doesn't really fucking matter to me. They had to hit over 50% of their threes, hit 23 threes. It's a team playoff record for them. They had to literally break records to be able to beat us. So, and they beat us again by 10, not by 20, not by 30, not 10. I'm okay with it. I can live with that.
How's
Moving
Chris
forward
Stapps doing?
He's going to be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think honestly, with him being out, and then the additional rest that he's going to be getting with until the next round goes forward and starts, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. So
did I cut you off?
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, you're good.
But I don't really care about the fucking Celtics because they're going to win the finals, so fuck them. But where do the Heat go from here? What do they? Is this a blow it up situation? Is this a run it back situation?
So I think a lot of their core is there, right? So I think that with Jimmy being out, they thought they had a legitimate chance of Jimmy being in there, and they may have. And the only reason we think that is because of last year and the Cinderella run and Jimmy being playoff Jimmy and the whole nine. They paid Jimmy a lot of fucking money, dude, to just be okay in the regular season and get them to that 8 seed. And you have to play Boston immediately. Sucks, dude. It really does. It fucking sucks for them, because they could have maybe gone a little bit further. Not if they played the Knicks. I think they would have got blown out by the Knicks. But, maybe if they play the 3rd seed or the 4th seed, then I think they might have a better chance. When you're looking at their free agent that they have, Caleb Martin, Kevin Love, Josh Richardson all have player options for next year. And the most notable player is old ass Patty Mills and DeLon Wright are like the two guys who are unrestricted free agents. The rest of the guys are just restricted guys who are most likely not going to go and lead the team. And no one significant. You still have Tyler Hero there. Jaime Jaquez is a really good rookie and has a really bright future ahead of him. Jimmy's still there. But I have serious questions about Jimmy. I looked up what he was making way earlier in the year because I'm like, dude, he's not playing well. And they fucking paid him a lot of fucking money to do this. Like, he's in the upper echelon of how much guys are getting paid. And it's just, I get it what he can do for you in the playoffs. And he flips the switch and he's great. You keep those core guys together, and I think you build off of it. I'm not sure what exactly they need, because I think they added a great addition in Terry Rozier, and obviously he was out for the series too, which I think makes a huge difference as well. So Rozier, Butler, and Bam, I think are a really good core group of guys, and getting them entire offseason to work together to get them to actually mesh and gel might push them further up the standings by the time we're talking about this next year on the podcast. I think they'll be okay. Just with the injury stuff, and they don't have super significant free agents to bring back. I think Caleb Martin definitely warrants it. But outside of that, they can substitute a lot of these guys in and out.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Love's career is probably over. Patty Mills, well, I shouldn't say over. He might sign somewhere next year, but he's not a needle mover anymore.
Yeah.
The Duncan Robinson stuff has been weird all season. They need to figure something out with that. Obviously, Tyler Hero was hurt a lot, so it may just be a simple. They just need to get healthy and run it back. We're not gonna approach these conversations. What do the Miami Heat need to win the NBA Finals next year? Because I don't think there's any shot. But
right,
it's just. There's some very, very clear kingpins in the league right now, and they're young. Timberwolves, Thunder, Celtics, and it's to compete with those guys, you're gonna have to get healthy. Jimmy Butler's like 34.
Yeah, he's getting up there. Yeah,
it's makes a lot of money. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. I mean, if they come out and they shit the bed start next year, that might be someone they may be looking to move at the trade deadline next year, because you got to capitalize on some value on him while you can. Otherwise, you're just going into a future of not much for the Miami Heat.
Absolutely. And especially with the coach you have there, right? I mean, you probably have one of the top three, top two, top one coaches in the league right now. And for fucking past forever, it feels like. He makes work and makes do with a lot of the talent that's around. So you just got to get him okay talent around some of your superstars, and I think the team will be okay. Just yeah, the Jimmy stuff is definitely eyebrow raising. It was eyebrow raising in the middle of the season for me. And then with him getting injured and out, they took one game away from Boston. Congratulations, that's fantastic for you. I guess you can hang your hat on it, put a banner up. I don't care, but it's yeah, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on for the offseason.
So to continue to hijack this then, because I'm more interested in what these teams are doing than what the teams are doing in the playoffs. Skipping everybody's favorite, we'll go to the other 8th seed on the board here. What are the Pelicans going to do? Because they built this team up, and now they're talking about wanting to retool it around Zion, who can't stay healthy. They got Brandon Ingram. They got McCollum. They had the pieces, I thought. I mean, I watched it firsthand all year. It was fucking terrible to watch. I thought they had the pieces to make a little bit of run. But
Yeah.
when you're is this man a superstar? I don't know what he is. He's a barely ever plays star, I guess. And they want to rebuild around him. I just don't know how smart the decision making there is.
Yeah, so I think the conversation with Zion was always health, right? And now that he had a somewhat healthy season throughout the regular season, it looked pretty good. He just didn't look as dominant. That was the conversation pre All-Star break was Zion's healthy, that's great, but he just doesn't look as dominant as even the short stretches that we got when he was healthy, but then he would go out for the entire year. He just looked stupidly talented. And that's why everyone still believed in Zion. Oh, Zion on Zion on Zion. But then once they switched to the point Zion role right after All-Star break, they became as a team dominant.
Mm-hmm.
As a team, they became dominant. And I think Brandon Ingram fits in a strange way because Brandon Ingram is a very Kevin Durant-esque, right? He's an ISO ball mid-range guy. He's a mid-range assassin who's going to get to his spots and hit his shots, right? When Zion is moving the ball around, it works really well. When Zion is not on the floor, it doesn't work very well. It clogs up a lot of the lanes because he wants to use that mid range. So it kind of forces guys in places that I don't think a guy like Jonas Valanciunas is being utilized all that great because he can't sit in the paint a lot of the times because BI wants to go ahead and drive in and he wants to utilize the mid range game a lot. So he's having to move in places that are very awkward for him. And so on that note, Jonas Valanciunas is an unrestricted free agent. Cody Zeller is an unrestricted free agent. Jose Alvarado has a club option, and that's their immediate free agents. When you look at the other guys on the team, they have a really good young core between Zion's really good. If you want to get rid of BI, I'm not sure what the return is for him. I know it's probably significant, but you have other guys, again, Jose Alvarado coming back next year with the club option. Trey Murphy is a really talented wing. Do you want to get him to step up and play in a starting position, getting rid of Brandon Ingram next year? He's Trey Murphy is a guy when he's on, he's on, he's off. If he's off, he's off. And then you have Herb Jones, who's your all NBA first team defensive player guy who's stepping in and he's the anchor of your defense. So I think this is a really good young team, but Brandon Ingram is going to be the subject of conversation throughout the offseason. If they can make Brandon Ingram work with Zion. And I think they can. It just has to do with Zion's health. Like, what do you do there?
Luckily
it's hard to predict.
Luckily for the Pelicans, they have the pieces to move if they need to retool here. This isn't a Miami Heat situation where it's like they got Tyler Hero, I guess. You're not moving Bam, you're not moving Jimmy until the season falls apart. But if they want to move McCollum for something, if they want to move Brandon Ingram for something, they can make that happen. And there's the NBA is in a weird flex situation this offseason with the Lakers getting bounced early and the Warriors not even making it in. They're superstars. There's going to be a phasing out here over the next season or two. So
I mean, on that note, just talk about the 7th seed.
Let's talk about it. Let's have a fucking party.
Dude, LeBron, bro. Then the Lakers. There's a conversation if LeBron has played his last game in the purple and gold. And I think LeBron is committed to the Lakers. And the Lakers are willing to make his wants of getting Bronny onto the Lakers and playing with him happen. That's the only thing he wants to do, right? As soon as that's done, no matter if he's averaging 28 points per game or 8 points per game, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, the last thing he wants to do is play with this kid, and that's all that he really cares about. I feel like at this point, yes, of course he's pushing for a championship. Yes, of course, but this team has a lot of free agents coming up next year too. LeBron has it's like a $51 million player option or something like that. D'Lo has a player option, which the dude can't ever perform in the fucking playoffs. I mean, get ready to learn fucking Chinese, bro, because you should go over the Shanghai fucking Sharks, dude, because holy fuck, you fucking suck in the playoffs, man. You had like one good like game in the series, and that's what won them the game. And that's the thing with the Lakers. Your entire fucking team should not depend if D'Lo has a good game. You're telling me that D'Angelo Russell is so important to this team that if he has a bad game, this whole fucking team falls apart? Not AD, not LeBron, but if D'Lo has a bad game, this whole fucking team is just trash. Taurean Prince is an unrestricted free agent. Christian Woods has a player option. Mo Bamba is an unrestricted free agent. Cam Reddish, player option. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are probably going to get picked up. Spencer Dinwiddie didn't do too much for them once he got signed. There's a lot of questions.
I think they need to move Anthony Davis immediately.
Really?
That dude's a fucking scam artist. Anthony Davis hasn't been good since the last season that him and DeMarcus were together in New Orleans. Like, that's the last time Anthony Davis was worth a shit. And don't talk to me about their Mickey Mouse championship either. Like, I don't even want to hear about it. Like, they haven't done shit since then. And LeBron comes out every year and he does. Maybe it's just my history of watching Domantas Sabonis abuse that man, but I think
it is.
This Anthony Davis should be an MVP candidate every year, bro. Like, he should be an MVP candidate every year, and he does absolutely nothing. I don't know. I think the Detroit Pistons should just draft Bronny number 1 and just sign LeBron. Like, I think that's honestly what if I was Detroit, that's what I would do. I would draft Bronny number 1, and then I would say, all right, LeBron, come play with us for a year or two. And just sell tickets. That's what I would do. Because who gives a shit about Detroit? You know? The thing about it, the Lakers keep trying this old rehash. Let's sign all these old-ass dudes. It's not going to work. It's never worked.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
It's just the Celtics did it originally. They did the original Big Three. And it's never really happened since then. You know? The Warriors didn't need Kevin Durant. You know, that was just an embarrassment of riches for them. They were good anyway. You know, the LeBron, one of the greatest players of all time, beats them that one year. And it's just, you know, the Big Three in Miami, that was a little bit different. It's just every other time that an NBA team has tried to do this, Brooklyn tried to do it. It was terrible. The Lakers have tried to do it so many times. They signed Malone and Gary Payton back in the day and it didn't work. It's just like, I'm honestly, it's exhausting to talk about this stuff. Like, LeBron, his championship contention days are over because he can no longer be. The dude was exhausted. Yeah. He was absolutely gassed because that team is asking him to do so much because D'Lo can't do shit. AD can't do shit. It's just honestly quite embarrassing. It's almost as bad as the Clippers, watching them and all these. It's like all their superstars are 40 years or older. It's just crazy watching all the superstars of yesteryear get together on these teams and then they can't do shit and they get walked by teams like the Nuggets and teams like the Pelicans. So honestly, you know what the Lakers should do? They should blow it all up. I know they won't because they're Los Angeles. It won't happen, but they should just, there was a time where it was D'Lo, Brandon Ingram, Alex Caruso, Randall. Like, they've drafted really well over the years, but this is where they're at. You know, they barely made the playoffs. You know, they made the playoffs, frankly, because Malik Monk hurt his knee. That's the only damn reason they made the playoffs.
Yeah, it is crazy looking at the teams that are just absolutely demolishing. Yeah, like you said, the teams of yesteryear, right? The teams that we see as the high competitors, or the guys we see as high competitors, just coming in now, and they're killing them, right? And whether that's off of, um, it's just it's I don't not you can't anymore in the NBA. I don't think put together just three really good, talented guys, and then it just automatically fucking work.
No,
Like
because
year
it's
one, they're
just
just gonna dominate.
it's a possession of iso ball every time down the floor. Look at the Suns. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like you got Booker and Durant and Bradley Beal, and every time down the court, it's like flip a coin. Whose turn is it to iso ball? You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Well,
And
they were the sixth seed. Let's talk about them. I mean, it's really it's Phoenix has like no draft picks until like 2031 or something fucking stupid. Like it's fucking crazy, dude. And you traded it all away for what? Bradley fucking Beal? Like
crazy.
like you can't defend the three at all. Your defense on the 3-point line is basically non-existent. That's number one. Number two, who the hell is ball handling for this team? Chris Paul. When you traded for Chris Paul, you made an immediate impact for a guy who was the ball handler. He's a vet. Imagine, this is something I just heard recently. You have the Wolves. Imagine the impact a guy like Mike Conley could have on the Suns. He's not going to fucking go out there and average fucking 20 points a game. Nothing stupid, right? But just a veteran presence on the team to ball handle and make sure guys are where they're supposed to be. Something that Bradley Beal has to get through his fucking head is he's not the one, he's not the two, he's the three. He's the three. That's where we're at. You're the third option. I know you were just the one. I know you've been a two in the past. You're the three now. And you need to like remember that. Like Devin Booker is ball handling and he shouldn't be. Let him be one of the best shooting guards in the league. Let him do that. Let him be a shooting guard. Don't have him ball handle. You need a guy to come in and ball handle and floor general this entire team. And it's just like you said, it's iso ball. The only team that actually works well off of iso ball is the Celtics. They run iso more than any other team in the league, but it's just the pieces that are around the entire team because of how it's built is just fucking different. It's so different.
And you have young superstars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, not aging old geriatric motherfuckers like Bradley Beal. They lost that series by a combined 60 points. There wasn't even a game that was close. Like,
No.
It was like the Kings Pelicans thing. Everyone's like, oh, the Pelicans can't beat the Kings 6 times in a row. I'm like, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but every time they play, the Pelicans win by 20. This isn't some competitive, hard-fought battle bullshit. They just keep wiping the floor with us. We don't have anything to do with their length. It was the same thing. The Suns had nothing for the. Hey,
nothing. They looked embarrassing.
Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal had absolutely nothing for the Minnesota Timberwolves. That shit is wild.
For a team that didn't look like a team last year, right? Minnesota looked like they were irritated with each other. Cat and Rudy looked like they were constantly fighting. Nobody could decide what anyone wanted to actually do because they never had any time to mesh between Cat's injuries, Rudy's injuries, and then the midseason trade.
Ant
nobody had any time to gel.
Ant just had to take over as the number one option on that team is kind of where he needed to emerge as the leader, and he did. Is it crazy that the biggest injury news of the postseason so far has been coaching?
Yeah, right.
People blowing out their patella tendons and breaking their fingers, slamming. That shit was that knee injury was wild. I was like, wow, how does that happen?
Dude, the Timberwolves are a team, right? They're a full team. Hey, yo, they got Kevin Durant, but we got Jaden McDaniels. Like, fucking Ant, dude. Ant is the over or under 2.5 years. Ant wins his first MVP.
Under.
He's so fucking good, and he is slowly. This is. I want the Wolves to win the next series so bad, because I want this to be the Anthony Edwards coming out party. I'm the face of the league, and they just had a press conference where Cat was like, "Yeah, he's the face." I know he says he has a couple years, and I have to wear sunglasses around him because the lights are so bright, because he's just that way. And that's Ant's the face, right? It's slowly, surely he has the personality, he has the swagger, he has the on-court presence, he has the leadership, and guys like Mike Conley are looking at him mic'd up in the huddle when Anthony Edwards like, you don't have to get me going. I'm always on. I'm always ready to go. I'm always here. And and Mike Conley's like, yo, take me there, Five. Like, take me, basically to the promised land. He's riding his hopes and dreams on this young kid. And then going back to the Suns on a press conference stuff, I forgot who it was, but the GM of the Suns was asked about just like the offseason stuff. Did you hear this? He was asked about it. I think it was today or yesterday, and asked about like the future of the Suns, and they're like, oh, we're going to be focusing on building around Kevin Durant. Apparently, fuck Devin Booker. We're going to be focusing on building around Kevin Durant. Check this. No team has ever unlocked Kevin Durant's true potential, and we hope to be the first. That motherfucker stood up there and said that. They're fucking done, dude. This franchise is so fucking done for like the next decade. It's fucking over for these fucking guys. Looking at the last set of Western Conference teams, the Dallas Mavericks and the LA Clippers fucking series. So
yeah,
Dallas.
Hopefully this ends with both teams getting eliminated.
They just tie and they just never end it.
I mean, let's be honest. Nobody outside of LA likes the Clippers. You know, nobody likes any of those stars. Kawhi is a freaking he's an embarrassment, honestly, to the NBA, in my opinion, with his antics over the years, with his fake injuries and his bullshit and all that other stuff. It's funny that Russell Westbrook gets the hate that he does when that dude just shows up every night to play basketball. He's got a love of basketball that knows no boundaries, and people hate him. And then, playoff P and all the other BS they got. And then you got frickin' Wax City Kyrie Irving. And then Luka Doncic, he thinks he gets fouled every second he's on the court, and he has to throw a fucking hissy fit after every play. Honestly, I got to tell you, man, the Kings set themselves back 100 years, drafted Marvin Bagley over Luka. But after dealing with DeMarcus and throwing a fit on every play,
Yep.
I absolutely could not have stood watching Luka every single night. I know he's a superstar, but watching him play, it's just like, it's almost as sometimes it's shy as like this, just watching them with the foul baiting and the bullshit and the complaining. You know what I mean? Like at least DeMarcus would complain because he didn't think he fouled nobody. Because DeMarcus would go down on the offensive side and he'd get his ass beat in the post. He'd get his face smacked. So then he goes down and he's playing defense. He gets called for these touch fouls that piss him off. But Luka, man, watching that dude complain is exhausting.
He baits the fuck out of everything, and he thinks everything should be a foul. And he definitely complains a lot, and he doesn't play fucking defense ever, right? Like, the reason the Mavs are this good today is not because, Luka's fucking going crazy. No, Luka can actually focus primarily on only offensive stuff, and he doesn't have to barely play any fucking defense because of the acquisitions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. Like, those two acquisitions went crazy for their front court. It absolutely changed the entire team, the defensive team. And I do want to back up a little bit. Luka in game 4, I believe, was tested a lot, and they got after him quite a bit, and he played decent defense. I'll give him the credit that he deserves there. But it's such I don't like watching him either, man. Every single, like, my cousins that live up in Washington, and I talk to them, and I'm like, they watch all fucking basketball all the fucking time. They watch everything. And I asked them how they feel about Luka, and they can't fucking stand the guy. They're like, he's just boring to watch. He's a fucking bitch. He's a crybaby. Like, it's same feelings about like Joel Embiid and like these type of like superstars who foul bait and they do all the same ass bullshit.
Luka is so bad that we just spent 6 minutes complaining about this series and we didn't even talk about James Harden. That's how bad Luka is.
Yep, exactly.
I don't know. I don't, not to cut you off, but I don't know how you could, like, and I'm literally watching it as we talk. How could you watch Luka play a game of basketball and then, God, this is going to pain me to say. Let's set aside my Kings fandom for a second. How could you watch a game of Luka playing basketball and then turn on a Pacers game and watch Tyrese Halliburton and think to yourself, oh yeah, I'm more entertained by Luka? That shit is just like, The way Tyrese plays with love and joy, and he just shot a three, follows his shot and dunked the ball off the tip. He didn't even get the rebound. He skied up and dunked the ball just now. I'm sitting here watching it. And then you got Luka. Luka would have shot that three and then turned to the ref and screamed because someone touched his thigh as he was shooting. It's frustrating because he's supposed to be the next generation of superstar, and this is not what we want to watch.
No, not at all. And we're looking, new generation of superstar, and looking at the old generation of the LA Clippers. If the Clippers don't pull out a win on Friday, that's series, that's game. That's it. Yeah. Looking at the future of the Clippers, specifically, Paul George has a player option. He's going to be brought back. James Harden is an unrestricted free agent. What's the question there? Because the other guys are PJ Tucker, Mason Plumlee, Russell Westbrook has a player option. But besides that, James Harden's 30. He's going to be 35 years old. He's an unrestricted free agent. Does he stay in LA, or is he going to move on to somewhere else again?
Nah, they're not bringing him back. There's no way, especially if they lose this series. You know what? He's going to go sign somewhere with Klay Thompson, and that team's going to be absolutely fucking terrible next year. That's where he'll end up at, because some dumbass team's going to hand Klay a bag, even though he ain't worth shit anymore. And
it's true.
I shouldn't. Klay's separate of this conversation because that dude got his career sapped by injuries, and he was a hell of a player. And it's disappointing to see it end this way for him. But it just, if I had it my way, no one would sign him. James Harden would just have to retire. Or he can go play with D'Lo in Shanghai.
Right. It's just disappointing because James Harden on the Rockets was my favorite shooting guard in the league, and it wasn't particularly close. I was just recently talking about this with my cousins, and I'm like, it wasn't close. He was my favorite, and he was just super entertaining, and he was fun to watch, and I loved the player he was. And then all of a sudden, all the antics came out, and it's fucking disappointing to see my love for a player turn to hate very quickly because of he plays for a rival, or I just don't fucking like him anymore. It's just disappointing. Looking at the Eastern Conference, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, this is the best series of the playoffs so far, in my opinion. It's been super entertaining to watch. The last game 5, went into overtime off of some missed free throws. Well, Mitchell Robinson just blunders, then Josh Hart missing a free throw, and then Josh Hart in overtime at the end saving the ball from going out of bounds, and then they actually called him out and he wasn't, and then Brunson going up for a 3, and then he was going to get contested, and then so he throws it away, and nobody was in the corner because Hartenstein was already cutting in, so go grab that rebound. So it was an unfortunate series of events for the Knicks that I thought they should have ended it there. I think this is either Knicks ended in this game or Joel Embiid goes ballistic. And I think that's the only way that the 76ers can win this one. Because that's the only way they've won the games. Joel's gone ballistic. Tyrese has gone ballistic. Besides that, New York's a better team, right? We talk about the younger teams coming. Yeah, I thought this was going to be 76ers coming in and upsetting them. But Jalen Brunson's so good. You remember the text message I sent you at the beginning of the season? I asked you about Jalen Brunson. I'm like, how do you feel about Jalen Brunson?
What I
remember this? I don't know. Here, let me see if I can search the text message. But I thought about this today. I wonder if I can find it.
Good luck. A year ago, you'd have been able to find it. We did all our texting through Snapchat.
Oh, maybe I did. Yep, I did. It was through Snapchat, so I don't think I can find it. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember it was like, oh, he's a solid young guy who has some potential, and then he's blew up to be uber talented this year. So, huge question marks, not of maybe the losers of the series of the 76ers, because I think they're going to hang their hat. Obviously, Joel Embiid probably should have won MVP if he's healthy. Bam, hang the hat. Tyrese Maxey is incredibly talented and a great second option. Hang your hat. It's a talented 76ers team with good pieces around them. So they were on track for 60 plus wins this year with Joel healthy. So they're going to be fine. There's nothing really entertaining to talk about the 76ers if they lose. But the Knicks, even if they win, they're an entertaining conversation, right? Because Julius Randle is what? He's going to be up for contract. And we got a couple other guys that are going to be needed to sign as well. And you're looking at the team now and you're going, we don't exactly need him at this point. OG Anunoby has a player option. Alec Burks is unrestricted. Isaiah Harkenstein is unrestricted. And those are going to be your significant players. So there's a lot of conversation about Julius moving into next year and if he's even going to be worth it. What? Did you find it?
No, I'm scrolling. I was scrolling through all the text messages and I looked down and I was at the point where I was trying to explain to you why that the guard that the Rams signed was terrible last year.
Fuck off. What's it called? Yeah, so OG's obviously uber important to this team. As soon as they traded for him, the whole team's dynamic changed. And you don't trade away two pieces away to Toronto to then not sign OG even before the player option even happens. I think they're going to get a deal done before that even comes about. But yeah, Julius Randle, what do we do with Julius? Because there's already questions beforehand. Are they moving on from him after this year, seeing what the 2 seed New York Knicks can actually do with a team led by Brunson and Anunoby and Josh Hart and Harkenstein and Mitchell Robinson and a lot of talented young guys on this team?
I don't think you bring Randle back.
I don't think so either.
Not
especially with the conversations that have already happened.
And if you were wondering about it, then you have solved that by watching the way the team has played without him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because then you don't even have the conversation with some of these stars. Like, what does a Jimmy Butler list Heat look like? We're watching it now. What does a Julius Randle list Knicks team look without him? And we're watching it now, and we're looking at two polar opposite sides of the spectrum. So, I think we got to wrap up the books on the New York Knicks, Julius Randle, and he's going to go to another team next year. The 6th seed and the 3rd seed, the Indiana Pacers and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Pacers currently lead the Bucks 3-2 with their next game today. So, looking at this, the chances are Pacers are maybe going to pull out this series. No Giannis. Where do the Bucks go after this?
I don't know, but he better shut the fuck up this offseason because he's starting to piss me off too. Giannis, I'm going to leave if you don't build a team. Your ass ain't healthy, so shut up. If you lose in the playoffs because you didn't play, then you automatically got to shut the fuck up for one offseason. That's the new NBA law. He's ran his mouth all year, and the problem with it is I love Giannis Antetokounmpo. I love him as a player. I love his play style. I love watching him. I want him to not be evil. Do not be a villain. So shut up. Like, how are you going to run your face? And I know you can't control injuries, but you run your face all year about how they need to put talent around you. They go and trade for Dame, and now you aren't nowhere to be found. It just...
Yep. And then you get rid of your coach because you don't like some of the word is, you don't like some of the defensive schemes that are being implemented on the team, and you don't like the coach. You want to get rid of them. And then you bring in Doc fucking Rivers for some reason. And everything's just mediocre. Like, it's incredibly average to the point where at the end of the year, the record was 500 with him on leading the team. So it's just, what are we fucking doing here? Their free agents is Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Jay Crowder, Wesley Matthews, and then his brother are the unrestricted free agents this year. They'll play. Yeah, Thanasis. Yeah, I don't know where we go from here. Everything, I think, depends on Giannis's attitude, and you got to get a new coach in there. And the Pacers look good.
Oh, they look
they're
great.
Young.
Can confirm.
They're young, they're talented. Pascal Siakam's going to have to get signed this offseason. You don't trade for him, the assets you did, and then you don't sign him. They're going to have a good young core, and their defense has gotten a little bit better since Pascal, and I wasn't expecting that. I was firmly against it. And I thought that it was just about going to stay the same because I didn't think Pascal was going to bring that much of a difference on the defensive end, and he has. So,
Well, and Tyrese has obviously
shout
gotten
out.
healthier also from where he was at. You know, he really pushed
definitely.
through injury to try to hit that
Yeah,
limit of games so he
65 or
because it's important for him for his contract, which is fucking stupid to begin with, but whatever. But he's obviously gotten healthier, and
yeah, definitely.
You know, I think they probably had an arrangement to re-sign Pascal before the trade was made. But you knock off the Bucks here, and you go in and you. I'd have to check who are they lined up to have in the second round. Do you know?
We play either the Cavs or Magic, so they either play.
Yeah, they'll have the Knicks or the Sixers. I mean, if the Knicks get through, the Pacers might go to the Eastern Conference Finals if they come up against the Knicks. So, I mean, that Siakam would definitely probably be highly interested in, and then at that point, if you have that much success, maybe he takes something, market value or just a little under market value so you can add a piece at that point. And I know Indiana's a small market town.
They can go get James Harden.
Oh, God.
They can go get James Harden.
Fuck it. Go get LeBron, bro.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah, so Pacers are great. And
bring Paul George home. I guess that's probably Pascal anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so and that kind of rounds out the rest of the games there for us. Oh no, I'm sorry. Almost forgot. Cavs and Magic. Cleveland leads Orlando 3-2. Game 5 was the only game that was actually close, and the Cavs pulled that one out. Next game is on Friday. It is Thursday currently if you are watching this on YouTube, so I apologize if we haven't got around to that. I would love to see the Magic tie this up. I'm rooting for the Magic immensely. Whoever wins this is going against Boston, so it doesn't fucking matter to me. We'll beat either team, but I don't think Cleveland is actually as talented as Orlando is. I think Orlando would actually give more fits to Boston than Cleveland defensively. So I would rather see Orlando pull it out. So I hope that the game on Friday is entertaining, and I hope they pull out a win. I just hope it's not a blowout. It just seems like whoever gets ahead first ends up winning. Whoever knocks down their shots immediately, because they're both really good defensive teams, they make their adjustments and then they're good to go. Too late, you're already down by 20. That's how every single game is pretty much gone.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Magic. I'd like to see Magic move on just because I think they have the best player out of the two teams, and I want to see, the stars shine on the biggest stage. So,
yeah, absolutely. Anything else from the NBA playoffs, Drew?
Nope.
Conference
finals are almost here, and that's when it starts to get exciting.
Yeah.
You got a quick little prediction for me
for the Eastern and Western?
Yeah, I mean, you got a pretty big series tipping off here with the Timberwolves and Nuggets, and obviously it's probably going to be Thunder, Mavericks. I guess maybe that's not guaranteed, but
give me the Thunder and give me Minnesota, because I think Minnesota has what it takes to stop. Let me put it this way. Whoever wins Minnesota versus Denver is going to the NBA Finals.
Which team in the West has the best chance to beat the Celtics in the finals? And don't say none of them. See, I think the best opportunity to beat you guys is still the Nuggets, but I don't think the Nuggets are going to make it, which is weird. Yeah. It just comes down to matchups at that point. But
it's between Minnesota and that's it. Between both of them could give us a lot of trouble. Minnesota. Okay. I think what makes a difference, as much as Rudy Gobert is called the most overrated player in the league, and he's probably defensive player of the year, I think he does make the difference there. As much as we live and die by the three a lot of the times, but if those aren't dropping, because they have a guy like Jaden McDaniels who's long and lengthy matching against Jason Tatum, and it's not a great matchup for them. And Jaylen Brown wants to run to the rack, and all of a sudden you have a 7'1" Frenchman standing in front of you. I think it makes a difference. I think his presence is daunting. And yes, I know Jokic is there too, but he's not. One's a decoy and the other one isn't. So I think the matchups defensively definitely make a big difference. I think we match up like with the wing players. I think we match up fine with the Nuggets. And Kristaps and Jokic going back and forth, it would be interesting if Kristaps can stay healthy and consistent throughout the entire series. So, but I think Minnesota would give us the biggest problem throughout the entire finals. So I hope they make it, because I want this to be Ant's thing. If we lose, I want it to be to Minnesota. I don't want it to be I want it to be Minnesota or Oklahoma. If we're going to lose, I don't want it to be to Denver. So what about you?
I think the Celtics are going to win, and I don't think it matters.
I hope so. Well, besides that, Drew, we will be back next week. More NBA stuff. Maybe we can discuss a little bit, or we can give a little bit of leeway. Maybe give a week break and go to off-season grades eventually for the NFL, and then soon jump into, once we get closer to like June-ish, I want to jump into like summer scouting and start jumping into that. Maybe we should just call it